Yes, yes, yes. It is the Castworthy podcast, and we are back. Well, at least two of us are back. It is Sunday, January 14th. January 14th.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yep.
Martin Luther King Day weekend.
hmm
I saw some people saying Jonathan Majors Day weekend. um, but we're here, two of us, me, Big Steve, aka Last of a Dying Breed, on the X Machine, formerly known as the Twitter Machine, joined by EJ Sauvage, not
I, kn- I knew
not
you would get that. I knew
not
you would
not
get that.
not the
Uh,
Dior version of Sauvage. This is the hood version of Sauvage. Um, and we here, man. What's good with you?
Man, listen. You know what really grinds my gears? Let's start off with that. In the age of technology and texting being available, if my 70-year-old mother can text me information and things that she wants and needs, why is it that people in my friend group feel the need to want to call me multiple times for
For
no
real.
reason? Like, bruh, the times that you're calling me, you could have just text me and got all of the information out. Like,
Quick.
listen, quick, unless we linking up, unless I gotta meet you somewhere, bruh, don't call me. Like, why do you keep calling me? I don't understand it. Like, it's one of the most annoying things ever. And 9 times out of 10, they get on the phone, be like, yo, what you want? Oh, all right. Let me holler at you. Why did you call me? Like, why did you call me?
And I don't I don't even listen to the voicemails, yo. Because I'm like, all right, they just called. I ain't pick up. So they gonna text me next. Right. So why am I gonna go waste my time and energy listening to a voicemail? That's more possibility of arthritis in my thumb for an extra movement on the phone. Listen, stop calling me. Don't call me. And I
Don't
work in
call me.
telecommunications, so I'm on the phone regularly. I don't
I
got
don't
time
want
to
to
be
talk to
calling.
nobody. Like,
Unless it's a
exactly.
wellness call like I made to VP this morning about the Dolphins. And that's why he's not here. So what I heard when I called him was this is kind of how the conversation went.
What's going on? I'm done. Cut the show. I'm done. Take me out.
VP VP ain't want no parts of the podcast. He ain't want no parts of the NFL. He ain't want no parts of football. It was tough, man. It's a tough L for him. His team, all that high horse talk that he was doing. We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to it. It's
Mm,
wild card weekend. It's a wild weekend. And we're here for it, man. We are here
yo,
for it.
you know something? We kind of touched on Jonathan Majors last week, but we didn't really go in like we usually do. Like I feel like we do. But honestly, man, I feel, and I said it last week. I think the jury kind of did him dirty in this instance of what happened. None of us were there, but it was clearly a domestic situation where his phone was taken and things were getting out of hand. She ripped off his beard, she attacked him. He went to get his phone, and they said he was reckless. And you know what's crazy about it is black folks, right? Is black folks are shitting on him, but it ain't because of the situation. It's because he's with a white chick. But how many times have people been in those situations where you got to wrestle something back from the other person or something's
Yo,
going on? And
that's how
and
crazy it is, yo. Black women don't even care about the domestic violence. If he was beating up another black woman, they would have been like, well, that's black love. Shoot him some bail. Things happen, right? Let's stop putting our black kings behind bars. Like they would have made the woman the villain, but because she white, he's wrong.
yeah, I don't know that they would have made the woman the villain either specifically, but I mean it's a nasty situation. Like people, it wasn't like he was in there doing some savage things. He was trying to get his phone, and the man ran like 30 miles to get away from this girl. And
He
it's like, yo, this man ran like 30 New York City blocks to
he
get
looked
away.
like the dude in Get Out. Remember Get Out? Just come.
He just kept running, yo. I mean, and the thing is, I employ people of our community to think about it in the domestic sense that it's like you have sons, you have nephews, you got cousins, and they're in these situations every day. And the thing that makes it craziest for him is that Marvel cut him out. And this is millions of dollars lost on his behalf, his well being. And then the only thing that we as a people can take from it is that he wants his women to be Coretta Scott King, and they killing him for it.
And she was
So,
white. She was white. They're like, no, how you expect her to be Coretta Scott? She don't know. She don't know our struggle. Listen, man. Here's the thing. I ain't never seen nobody run like that in when they get into some type of dispute. And people just really got to learn to walk away, man. Walk
and I mean,
away.
he wanted to walk away with his phone.
Walk away before, man. Keep the phone. I mean, at
Yeah.
this point, you done caught me. You know what I'm saying? We gonna either it's gonna happen. Either we gonna break up or we gonna stay together. Me having my phone in my hand at that moment don't make a huge difference.
Yeah.
I think, when you look at, the quote unquote injuries that she sustained, I think it was when he pushed her back in the car. That's when the ear thing probably happened, right? Her ear probably hit the door and boom, split her ear back there. And then when they was going at it, or when he was trying to get his phone back, he probably squeezed her hand and that's what fucked her finger up. But I mean, and realistically, right? That's everyday shit. It's just people don't call the cops every day. I mean the hand squeezing, not the banging the head on on the car.
Mhm.
But you people just gotta know, look, listen, man, in any relationship, if it ain't working, or if you caught in something, man, you know what? You got me. You got me. We're gonna talk about this later when you're not as frustrated and I'm not as frustrated. That's probably the best option.
Yeah, and I totally understood what he meant. Like he should have walked away from it. And I mean, it happens to the best of us. Again, for me, the only difference is when it jeopardizes your livelihood, like
Mhm.
you losing millions of dollars and potentially ruining your career. That's the crazy part. And then he called Megan his Coretta, and it's like they clowned him for that. So it's like you don't want us to tell you to get BBLs. You don't want us going after the strippers. And when a man calls his black woman Coretta, you still kill him. I'm confused. I don't know which one it is.
It's
What do
Queen.
y'all want to be? What do y'all want to be?
Well, I think the whole Coretta thing, they just basically saying he turned to it late. He turned to her late. And was using, not using, but she was a last resort type of thing or a second option type of thing. But look, Jonathan Majors, let's call a spade a spade. This dude he's not attractive, historically, right? Like when you talk about historically attractive, what women like, especially, women of our culture, they generally don't gravitate to a Jonathan Majors type guy. He got a big ass nose, he got a strong ass face. Like he's got features that are not what women generally look for, right? You're usually looking for, you know, nice eyes, slanted eyes, nice lips, right? Slender, cheekbones, nice jaw, jawline, shit like that. That's what women are generally looking like. They're not looking for him. The only reason they're looking for him now and recently was because one, he's rich, and two, he in Rocky with his shirt off looking like a goddamn sentinel. You know what I'm saying?
Rocky.
Or whatever you call it.
Creed.
Creed, Rocky, same shit.
Right.
That's why they like him. But historically, like even when he was on HBO, you didn't hear them talking about him back then.
Nah.
So who was supporting Jonathan Majors all this time? White women. White women getting up there talking about, man, I want a successful individual, right? They prioritize success versus the other stuff in most cases, right? And I think that's part of the problem with our culture. We don't prioritize success. We don't prioritize what's coming to the table outside of what you're making right now, right? The long run is what I'm talking about. So white women generally see that. They see that in athletes. They see, and then you'd be like, oh, look at this basketball player going with the white woman. Well, the white woman was there early. She saw it, right? You was looking for homie that was driving, the BMW with the BBSs on it. You wasn't
Yeah.
looking for the dude that was driving the Honda Accord with the beat up front, who was grinding away, working at bagging groceries. You didn't want the dude bagging groceries. You wanted the dude that could buy some, the drug dealer.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Very
white girls
true.
is like, yo, this dude is a hard worker. This is the dude I want. This is the dude that got a future.
Yeah.
Now it's Future, right? We're at Future, and now y'all mad because he's with the one that was holding him down when he didn't have it. Like you can't have it both ways, man.
Yeah, and that's the confusion for me. Again, no matter how you cut it, right? He's with Megan Good now, who's had her struggles in relationships. She looks happy, right? And he's calling her the best things he could be calling her, and we we killing him for it. And then going back to Simone Biles, she's like, "Yo, this dude, her wife is, I mean, her husband is saying, yo, look, she pursued me, so we can't be pursued anymore." Like, and I saw a woman debating like, who is he? And he's a millionaire. Somebody had to come on like, actually he is. Like,
Right.
it's
He's a
it's
football
like
player.
it's like, where are we today? That our people are just, we worry about the wrong shit, man. We just worry about the wrong shit.
Mhm. That's what. You know what? Never mind. You almost got me there. It's too early for that. You almost got me there.
Too early in the pod.
Shout out to Jonathan Majors though. I saw the interview he did. I hope I don't know if you saw it. I hope you get a chance to watch it.
I did.
They tripped him up in a couple spots. I thought he did pretty well and good in a lot of the portion of it. It almost looked rehearsed, like he was waiting for who was going to give him that first opportunity to tell his story. You know what I mean? And then they tripped him up with some challenging questions and stuff. And you saw just the real side of him. Like, I feel like he understands that there was a mistake there. Sometimes these people don't end up in those types of situations until it's too late. Like, if you ain't never been in a situation where another individual, whether it be woman, man, black, white, can call you out on something or accuse you of something, now you're in that situation, you don't know how to act. You don't see it coming, right?
Mhm.
But if you've seen something like that, through high school, through college, through, just life in general, you can see that coming. And I just don't think he ever was in that type of situation. Jonathan Major strikes me as, and I could be way off, but he strikes me as the guy where he grew up in a family where, they told you, you're the strong black man, you could be anything you want whenever you want, right? Just put your mind to it, your heart to it, right? And he did, and it transferred to success. But I don't think he's ever been through anything challenging like that. And again, I could be way off base, but from the way he handled that, running away, like like he strikes me as the Zion Williamson type of guy, right? Like Zion ain't never been through nothing like that. Shorty came out, was like, "Oh, this how we get down in the hood." Zion was like, "I've never seen that. What? It's just a church. I've been in church all my life. I just wanted
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get my PB."
yeah. I agree. I mean, I tell people all the time, I tell young men all the time, just walk away. And I think you were right. But the other aspect is, again, your phone is your security. You got all type of stuff on there. You might have the accounts on there. You know what I mean? Shit, I might want to leave with my phone, because if my
Well,
Cash
it
App
should be
is
locked.
up there, yeah, I mean, but that might have been a problem in the first place at the time. You know what I mean? Who knows at that moment?
He's
You know what I
also
mean?
rich though. Like you and me, we should leave with our phone and worry about Cash App. That
Absolutely.
one of them Disney checks is gonna make up whatever she spends, and he could take her to court. He made a bad decision in the moment, and luckily I think the more severe charges, were dismissed, right? Or
Yeah.
he was found not guilty of. He was found guilty of the lesser charges, and then, of course, that was, Disney probably paid them off to get him off the books. Like, yo, we can't get rid of him without a conviction. We stuck with this guy. And then now we got to deal with the domestic violence protesters if we keep him around. So we need y'all to hit him with something so we could say, hey,
We got rid of him.
yeah, conduct detrimental to the brand, and we're gonna get rid of him. Like that's
And
how I feel like it went down.
The other crazy part about it is they talked about him being reckless in that moment, but then they use all of the history of the relationship. Like, bruh, they both were toxic. Like, I mean, at
Mhm.
the end of the day, it is, and I understand why black folks feel the way they feel, but at the end of the day, another black man fell victim to the system because of nothing else. It should have been thrown out. It should have been thrown out.
Yeah, I think he'll bounce back. I said it last time we talked about this, and I'm confident. I feel like he's gonna bounce back. He's too good of an actor. He carries too big of a name, especially. I mean, how many people I can imagine were running for that first interview? And of course, you're gonna go to Good Morning America. It's one of the biggest platforms out there, if
Mhm.
not the biggest platform. Like you for who you're trying to reach. You're trying to reach white women, right? You gonna where else you gonna reach white women other than the Kardashians on
Or
Good Morning
HGTV.
America or HGTV, right? They out there buying all types of Cole Haans for their husbands to go to work and shit. Like you, he picked a good platform, and he'll be fine. He'll be fine. It might take a little bit. We'll see him pop up, I think, in a local film of sorts, right? And someone will be like, "Oh, Jonathan Majors is in that." It might be something that's not on a major, um, uh, under a major company, right? Production company, and maybe it doesn't get a lot of commercials and stuff like that. And then it'll pop up, and you'll be like, "Oh shit, I didn't even know Jonathan Majors was in this." Like
Yeah.
that's the type of film that he'll probably end up in, and then it'll probably go from there.
I hope he bounces back, man. I really do.
Yeah,
And
no doubt.
I hope he, stays where he needs to be and looks like he's in a good space of making good there. You
That
know,
is a good space. We gave him his flowers. We gave him his flowers leading up to all of that. Like last year and the year prior, we gave Jonathan Majors flowers. We really, really like him on this pod. So um, hopefully he does well and learns
absolutely.
from it, right? Learn from the
Hmm.
situation,
Hmm.
you know.
So hopefully
And
he's found his Coretta that won't behave like that.
and even if he hasn't, ooh, it's probably been a good time.
Been a great time.
No
Shout
pun
out to
intended.
him. Shout out to him.
Yeah, for real. Um um So what else is going on, man? Before we get, you do anything this week? Anything fun before we get into football? I have a feeling VP is gonna pop in, so I don't want to get he. I think he wants us to get to football before he gets here, so
Right.
people don't get to see me cry on the live. So
Right.
I'm extending it a little bit. You do
Nah,
anything fun this week? Anything crazy?
nah,
It's the New Year.
nothing regular week. I'm trying to think if anything happened in DC that was crazy. I done
Did y'all
seen
get
a
any
few.
snow?
Nah, man, we just had a lot of rain and a lot of rain.
A
Yeah.
lot of cold and snow and shit coming down from the north, um, or Midwest, really. And I've been watching. I'm like, yo, is it gonna snow in Tennessee or North Carolina, like in the mountains or something? Because if it is, I'm hopping in the car and we out. We going to see some snow, but it hasn't. And the forecast hasn't shown snow close enough for us to drive. I'm not flying though. I could have flown up to like Vermont or some shit, but I ain't about that life. I don't want to fly through the snow. I'd rather drive there and then the snow come.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been kind of weird though, man. The weather up here hasn't been the same as it's been in the past. I mean, it was pretty cold the other night, but it hasn't been bone chilling cold. Like it's just been kind of cool. Like I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
hoodie season.
Definitely,
Enough for the
definitely.
leggings to be out.
Yeah, I would
That's
say
what we.
so.
That's what we got. We got 50s, 60s. The other day, Friday, it was uncharacteristically warm. It was 77 degrees. After all week, it was in fucking low 60s. So, but this week
Well,
we're looking at cool weather here in Florida, which means the leggings will be out. So trips to Costco are necessary.
yeah, it's the global warming is real, man.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. Um. All right, fuck it. Let's go. Oh, wait a minute. You been watching anything? You watch anything new?
I started I started Kevin Hart's movie Lift. I mean, it's one of those. He's trying to be serious in it. It's one of those comedy heist, but not a lot of comedy. Kind of like the Gal Gadot, super action, not super action, where she's like the secret agent, and they had this subtle comedy as points in it, and Kevin Hart is this witty leader. I mean, it's cool. It's on brand for Netflix. I wish they would really stop making those type of movies. Um, I could tell he didn't write it really. I could tell like someone else wrote it, and but I mean, he's gonna definitely get a big check for that for sure. Again, like we've said on the pod, I'd rather see him in a serious role where it's a very serious role and he just finds his funny points in it and he makes it funny and he makes it his own. Because I think that's when he's in his pocket. Um,
Yep.
Other than that, what else have I watched? Reacher is back on Amazon. I love that show. It's been a solid show. The actor, I love the guy who played. I don't remember his name, but he's solid in that. I tried to get through that Netflix one. I can't even remember the name of it, but I've been trying to get through that. I can't get through it. And then Raising Canaan, man. Raising Canaan, I think of all of the stars, all of the power joints, other than the main OG one. This one is just it's so different. The realism, the acting. I mean, the just taking you back to the 90s. It's just crazy. Like, it's just crazy, man. I really, really enjoy that show. And they do a really, really good job, man. So, shout out to the Raising Canaan series. It's in season 3. Definitely dope. I definitely recommend cats watch it, man. It's been a good 3 seasons consistently. So hopefully we'll see some things go down in this one. So yeah, that's all I've been watching though.
I think Netflix is still dealing with those movies and TV shows that they agreed upon or agreed to when the
Mhm.
writer strike was coming or was on, right? Because I think there was just scripts and shit that was done and people were like, all right, Netflix was like, all right, we don't got nothing new coming. We're gonna grab just like with the pandemic, right? Pandemic, you had like the floor is lava, silly ass shit like this, like that. So I think with the Kevin Hart shit, it's a big name. Netflix is like, grab it, because we don't know what the writers are gonna be doing. Let's commit to this. And now here we are. It's releasing. I'm watching a show on Netflix called I think it's called The Truth
Hmm.
or Trust, the
Mhm.
Trust. And basically it's 8 people, no, it's 11 people. 11 people are basically put on an island. They start
I
with
saw that.
250
I
grand,
saw that. Yeah.
250 grand, and you could be you can choose to vote someone off type of shit. There's a lot to
Mhm.
it, right? It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But that's all I've been watching. From the left field though, we've got our friend, our third leg, pause, our
Yep.
co-host, the third leg of the tripod. See what I did there? Always positive, never negative, extremely confident. Miami Dolphins super native, Tua enthusiast, Miami media top subscriber of 2023, none other than the VP. Welcome to VP to the show, all.
What's going on?
Just in time, good brother.
Yeah.
Man,
I bet you I bet your spiel for today that you were preparing all week had to change after last night's proceedings, huh?
it was bad, man. It was bad. Like I'm seeing people out there who feel optimistic, like, oh, playoffs 2 years in a row, and I'm like, yeah, I mean that's cool, but that's I feel like you're looking to You're too in the
I
moment.
see what you did
You
there.
know, yeah, you're too in the moment right now. Like this shit has been bad. You know, and if you want to shoot to the tiniest bit of bail, right? You could argue this is kind of like his first real season. You know what I mean? He's
It
been
is.
hurt his whole career. This is the first time he's played the entire season. And good morning, Judy. And other than that, man, it's been bad. It has been bad. You know, and I said this. I don't know if it was in chat or on here. And Steve poo-pooed it. I said next year McDaniel is going to be on the hot seat, and I think that the Dolphins need to seriously think about if Tua is the guy going forward. And Steve was like, "No, he's the guy," you know.
Listen,
And the reason that I say that is that you know, and Steve, you know this better than EJ probably because you're a Cowboys fan. Like getting to the playoffs is not enough.
kick this
You know what I
nigga.
mean? Like winning 10, 11 games, that's cool. But like you're trying to go deeper than that, right? And when you look at Tua's performance in these big games, because you know you can beat up on all the bad teams in the regular season. That's how you get to the playoffs, right? But once you get to the playoff, there's no more bad teams, you know, and unless there's like an anomaly like last year where that Tampa team gets in that had like 4 wins or whatever their crazy record was, right? But for the most part, it's all good teams. And when you look at Tua's career, year one of his career, week 7, like playoff games, and even though this is his first playoff game last night, but playoff atmosphere type games, right? In his rookie season, week 17 was a win and you're in. He played like complete shit. The following year, in 2021, week 17, it was a win plus another team lose and you're in. So still playoff kind of situation. He played like shit. And last year he was hurt with the concussion, so he didn't play. And then this year against Buffalo, it was a win, and you win a division. You were already in, but you win a division. You get a home playoff game playing in 69-degree weather versus -30 weather, and he played like complete shit. And then last night in the actual playoffs, he played like shit again. So I think the team has to say, you know, is this guy going to win us games? Absolutely. Is he going to take us to the promised land though? Is the question.
The Miami Dolphins were up 3 with 5 games to go, and they pissed it
Yep.
away. Nobody has ever done that in the past. It's the first time anything like that has ever been seen. 5 games to go, you're up 3 and you piss it away. That's never happened before. I think that's a question for McDaniels. Shooting some bail to Miami though. Lots of injuries. Lots and lots of injuries at some unopportune times, including Waddle being out. And I've told you guys, when Jalen Waddle is off the field, Tua and Tyreek look like shit. And every game Waddle has sat out, I mean, Tyreek's getting his 70 yards, but he's not catching touchdowns. He's not getting those big breakaway plays because now the safety only has to stay honest on one guy. They don't got to worry about the other side of the field. So the Dolphins were extremely challenged when Waddle wasn't there. They lost a bunch of defenders, right? The coaching though has to understand that when that bag is empty, meaning you get to week 14 and everybody has watched the tape and caught up to you, that there's nowhere else for you to go and you have to change your game plan, right? Tua, like Dak, like Jalen Hurts, like many of the quarterbacks today in general, they're not the Tom Brady. They're not the Peyton Manning. These are not guys that can look at the play, read the defense all game. Maybe one play, maybe 2 plays, maybe 1 quarter. We're talking about 4 quarters of reading the defense and finding those weak spots and making those plays, calling those audibles, making throws that the coach didn't call, changing to the run, changing to the pass. These guys can't do that. Dak can't do that. Tua can't do that. Jalen Hurts can't do that. The quarterbacks of today, there aren't many that can do that. You might have the closest, I think, that's still left in this league, obviously, Aaron Rodgers. But you take him away, maybe a Matthew Stafford, and he's still probably only 50% of that versus what these other guys are. So, from a coaching standpoint, when that bag starts to run dry, that well starts to run dry, and defenses and teams are starting to catch up, you got to change it up. With McDaniel and with whoever's calling the offense on that side, you guys continue to run the ball and try to run those stretch plays. Sometimes you went through the tackles, but mostly the stretch plays, and people just basically set up for that. They set up looking for those outside runs, and now if Mostert can't bounce it outside and A-Chain can't bounce it outside, now you got 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 versus 3rd and 4, making it a quick slant for Tua or whatever it is, right? Or now you got 3rd and 1, you run Tyreek on a go route, and he's gonna beat him up, and nobody's expecting it because it's 3rd and 1. So from an offensive coordinator or a play caller standpoint, you got to change that. Your defense, though, your defensive coordinator, who's been around the block and been there for years upon years upon years, did. You guys lost your secondary. You lost a lot of your secondary. And what did he do? He said, all right, we're not going to put it on these guys for coverage sacks. We're going to blitz everybody. Send the fucking world at Patrick Mahomes. And it worked. It worked, but these guys got tired because your offense couldn't extend the plays and you're playing in negative 24-degree weather. So really, yeah, to your point, it does fall on McDaniel. And I didn't think it was going to. I gave a lot of stock to Mike McDaniel for his human side of things, right? And I saw him get killed on some of the shows this week leading up to the game. I want to say it was Teddy Bruschi when they talked about Belichick, which we'll get into, retiring. He was like, these new coaches, they want to be your friend and they want to, Belichick never does that. And then they brought up, McDaniel in that game we talked about on Hard Knocks where he tapped Tua on the shoulder and said, hey, put your chin up and put a smile when they're getting their ass whooped. And he was like, Belichick would never do that, right? I like that, but I think that's the society we live in today. I think that's a good leader in today's society, but you still got to have that rough side. And I think that's where, McDaniel was just like, all right, let's get out there, guys, and let's have fun. No, we should have been at home this week. Let's not have fun. Let's get out there and bust some ass.
So can I get in real quick, EJ, before you
go? Real quick.
Okay. So here's what I'll say. I agree with some of what you said, right? On Vic Fangio on the defensive side, the guy's down 6 defensive starters. Like last night, we were missing 6 starters on defense. That's more than half of the defense. You know what I'm saying? And then 3 of the backups to those 6 starters also are out. So, you know what I mean? Like, so the defense is down bad. Even with that said, those boys played well last night. They gave up 1 touchdown in the first quarter, held them to all field goals, and then gave up another touchdown in the fourth quarter. That crazy, that bullish Pacheco run. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So the defense was keeping you alive. The offense wasn't doing anything. The defense was doing more, bend, don't break, right. And the offense was just atrocious, right? But on McDaniel, right, and this is when I be saying, like, when I say stuff, when I be like, you guys just be saying shit or whatever. Like, this is kind of what I mean, right? Like when Steve talked about the outside runs and stuff, right? If you pull up the box scores from last night, you know how many times we ran the ball last night?
Not
18.
enough.
18 in the entire game. We ran the ball 18 times. You know what I'm saying? McDaniel does not call a balanced enough offense. And it makes me think about going back to that Patriots-Falcons Super Bowl where Kyle Shanahan, where McDaniel comes from, is the OC in Atlanta under Dan Quinn. And they just keep calling these pass plays, and you end up letting them have enough clock to come and get you and win in that Super Bowl, right? And we're seeing that with McDaniel in Miami, where he won't run the ball. There's a sequence last night in the third quarter. We get the ball first in the third quarter. McDaniel comes out and calls 4 runs in a row, 8 yards, 5 yards, 7 yards, and then I think 2 or 3 yards, right? Now it's 3rd and 2. And what does he do? Throws a fucking wide receiver screen. It goes for no gain back to the line of scrimmage. He goes for it on 4th down. It's 4th and 2. What does he do? Instead of lining up for a run, he goes 5 wide shotgun. And in a 5 wide shotgun set, they throw the pass to a receiver who was only at the line of scrimmage. And he didn't catch it, but even if he had caught it, I don't even know if it would have been a first down because it was right there at the line of scrimmage, depending on the spot. You know what I mean? And it's like McDaniel last week against Buffalo. Achane ran well in the first half, and then you get to the second half, he only let Achane run the ball 2 times. It's like McDaniel runs the ball and he says, "Man, that shit's working too well. We gotta stop doing that." Like,
Well, I agree. I agree with both of you guys. And I think Steve, you're 100% right about the quarterback of today, which is why I keep telling people that a lot of these guys are not great at reading defenses. They're not great at making decisions. But a lot of them are still very young. And we forget that some of the quarterbacks that we mentioned that are great sat behind other people. They had time to develop. Tom Brady would have never played if Mo Lewis didn't take Drew Bledsoe out of the game. The only one you probably could say would have started right away and did was Peyton Manning. Aaron Rodgers sat behind Brett Favre. I mean, they're not giving these guys enough time to really grow. Dak Prescott was never supposed to be the guy. 3rd round guy out of Mississippi State. He lit up the Senior Bowl, but I mean, no one wanted to take a flyer on this guy. And he got thrown into the fire. And again, he's had to adjust through how many coaches that might not have been great for him. You know what I mean? Even Garrett, I don't think ever really wanted Dak to play. But going to Tua, I think Mike McDaniel, and I was saying this last night. Huh?
I was muted talking
Oh,
shit to you. Go ahead.
I was saying last night to you, VP, like you, and I pointed out how at the time there was only 8 rushes from Mostert, and then Tua, if you look at his productivity on the runs, was damn near just as good every clip that he ran. And my point was McDaniel kept putting this dude in 7-step drops where your O-line isn't as good as it was starting the season. You got Karlaftis out there. You got some dogs on Kansas City D-line that are pretty good. Johnson and Jones in the interior. And you're giving this kid 7-step drops. And instead of climbing the pocket, Tua, for whatever reason, drops back 7 yards, throwing off his back foot. He's not the tallest guy. He doesn't throw off his back foot that well, and he keeps floating the ball. And my thing was, Mike McDaniel, you've been winning all season by giving him 3-step options, using your speed to beat these guys one-on-one. And for whatever reason in this game, you want to throw everything out of the stadium. And Tua, I mean, granted, he has a concussion and injury risk. Every time that he didn't have an option and he ran, y'all advanced the ball.
10
So
yards.
I think Mike McDaniel, he really did let y'all down. But I think the saving grace to also think about that is he's also these 2 seasons taking a franchise that was, while you guys won games under what was your old coach's name?
Flores.
Black brother. Under Flores, while you guys won games under Flores, your franchise was kind of in disarray in the sense of all that nonsense going on, them wanting him to tank, all of that drama, the Flores culture to Mike McDaniel's culture. I think for those 2 seasons working with the confines of what has gone on, he's done well. But I also see your point where ownership can say, if you don't get it right next year, something's got to shake up. And I can see that happening. But I do shoot him bail because, again, this is the 2nd season where he's had to revamp this entire culture. He's had to implement his entire system. And, Tua last year was hurt. This is the first time he's played 18 games. So, I think all in all, I get it, wanting to go to the dance, but I think this was something to leave, for next year.
But
Agreed.
EJ, the problem with McDaniel for me is that Steve said this. I brought it up last week on the podcast. Steve said it today. you have a 3-game lead in a division with 5 games left, and in week 18 you're playing for the division. That makes no sense. The collapse against Tennessee, right? And then when you look at the way that the team looks against the better teams, right? The offense, it looks like not only Tua is lost, it looks like McDaniel is lost out there. It looks like he's not sure what to do, right? You
For
go back to
sure.
last season, we played
Does
San
McDaniel
Francisco.
call your offensive plays?
Yeah, McDaniel calls the
Okay.
offensive play. Frank Smith is the offensive coordinator, but McDaniel calls the offense.
He might need to
And
hand that off.
and you go last year to the San Francisco game. They come out, first play of the game, Trent Sherfield, 75 yards to the house. Play one of the game. After that, the entire rest of the game, the offense looks like shit, right? You go to the next game, which was the Green Bay game. I shoot to a bell on that one because that was the game that he got the concussion, and we didn't know about it until the next day. So he looked like shit, but then we find out he was playing with a concussion. So, whatever, nothing to see here, right? The kid was injured. But then you go to this season, he looked bad in the Kansas City game. He looked bad in the Philly game. He looked bad in the Tennessee game. He looked bad in the Ravens game.
Are you saying
Bad in
Tua?
the Bills
Are you saying Tua's looking bad? Or are you saying
game. And the
McDaniel's coaching?
The offense.
The Dolphins average 30-something points per game against the bad teams. And against the good teams, the teams that are plus 500, and I don't mean good, like just plus 500, they average 18.
Main
Passing yards go from 270 a game down to 220. Last night, I don't even think he hit 180.
No, he didn't because I had a prop on it. McDaniel last night, and much of the end of the season played for tomorrow, right? And in the playoffs, you can't play for tomorrow. You have to play for today. If Tua gets knocked the fuck out, Tua gets knocked the fuck out, and you lose this game with your best player on offense, or one of your best players, your top 2 to 3 players on offense, going out there and trying to make a play. To EJ's point, and VP, you disputed it last night when he said running. It's a different game. Like, they were dropping back and they were trying to cover Tyreek. So you had 2 men back every single play. Unless Tyreek ran a slant or crossing route, he wasn't open. So you got a safety back on him. You got a corner back on him. You run Jalen out, Jalen Waddle out, and now you have a safety and a cornerback on him. The middle of the field was pretty much open because their linebackers were playing your tight ends. So he absolutely should have been able to run more. Maybe not regularly, but definitely more. And each time that he did make that decision, the first time he got 9 yards. The second time I want to say he got 7 yards. And then after that, they just, it was so far and few between. But yeah, McDaniel's played for tomorrow, and you can't. You have to play for today in the playoffs. In week 1, you play for tomorrow. In week 1 of the playoffs, you play for right now.
It was Steve, to piggyback on what you were saying. Tua had about 5 carries for like 35 yards at one point, and he got them all on clips of just running up the middle. And at some point, when the defense, to your point earlier, when the defense has you figured out and you're doing all these things and you're just dropping back,
you gotta take what they give you.
They take what they give you. They made the game so easy for Kansas City's, for Spagnuolo. They made the game so easy because now you're just dropping back 7 yards. Tua doesn't climb the pocket for whatever reason. And again, if I'm McDaniel, I'm telling him, look, get the ball, take 7, but check the coverage, check the flow. The dude had a truck-sized hole about 60% of the time. And at some point, you just take your 4, take your 5, slide. And then when they start to make it honest again, and they start to pull linebackers off of your tight ends, and because you had George Karlaftis out there covering people, he hasn't done that all season. But they knew at that point, we don't need you to rush because we're just going to drop back 7 and throw a floater anyway.
So here's my thing, right? And I don't necessarily agree on Tua running. I don't mind them doing some design runs because Tua while he's not that fast, I think he's not as slow as people think he is.
He's super
you know?
athletic. Super
But
athletic.
Right.
those didn't have to be designed. It's just
Right. No,
drop
I'm
back.
not saying design. Yeah, I'm not saying
Okay.
design run, but I'm not a
could've
fan of
been.
Tua running too much, giving his injury history. But I get your point, and I don't think that it's an invalid point, right? But the problem is Andy Reid said something last night in his press conference. I don't know if you guys heard it or whatever. He said, I think that the Dolphins thought we were gonna play this game different, and he was basically saying he think that Miami thought that they were gonna run more because of
Run
how
the
cold
ball.
it was.
Okay,
You know
right.
what I mean? And they came out passing, and I think it caught the defense off guard in the first quarter, which is why they were able to march down there and score. And then it seems like after they adjusted, because then we held them to basically field goals, right? But it seems like McDaniel came in and started off right away and said, "Yeah, we're gonna just throw the ball, and I'm sorry, we're gonna run the ball." And then all of a sudden, when it wasn't working, we're gonna just go completely to the pass. But the point that I'm making is going back to coaching, is that it seems like McDaniel doesn't make adjustments, right? The Dolphins put out this week that they all week this week. They practice in their indoor facility. That way they can turn the temperature down, right? They turned the temperature down to as low as it goes in the indoor facility, and we're practicing in 50-degree weather. What the fuck are we talking about here? It was almost 100 degrees lower in Kansas City than it was in the practice facility. Why the fuck didn't the team travel to KC on Tuesday to practice in that shit so they can get used to throwing the ball in it, right? Because you look at Tua throwing the ball last night, he's throwing these floaters. The passes weren't very accurate. Even that touchdown to Tyreek was a bad ball. And I asked in the chat, like, yo, because I heard it was windy. So I'm like, did the wind get the ball, or was that an underthrown? Like, it wasn't even a deep pass.
I also think his poor throwing came from those 7-step. Just go back and watch it. Those 7-step drops. He just stands back there, and you can't drop back seven steps and then just throw off your back foot. And he's a lefty, so it's like
people dick ride Tua for his accuracy, and he's accurate, but he's accurate because he throws touch passes. He doesn't throw bullet passes very well. And that's what Patrick Mahomes does, which is why when the wind is blowing, like it was last night, Mahomes was able to still zip it in there to Rashid Rice. And Tua, all the passes he made that looked really good were those floaters that didn't get caught in the wind, out to the sideline, Jalen Waddle wide open. Tyreek was open on that last play, that last drive, but it was too late by that time. And that one flew in the wind a little bit, but it was still a pretty good pass. Tua's a touch pass quarterback, very accurate when he throws those touch passes, but when he throws the bullets, if it's not over the middle, wide open, he's not great. He doesn't throw outside the numbers great, and they played over the middle great.
That's just not true. That's just not. I mean, I get what you're saying, but it's just not true. When you look, I've seen the numbers laid out. When you look at Tua's numbers outside, Tua actually throws the ball better outside the numbers than he does in.
No, he doesn't. He throws a deep ball.
I've seen the numbers.
He just throws the ball deep.
I don't know that.
I'm telling you, he does.
I'm not gonna debate because VP has brought this up before. He's stood on this before. I'm not gonna debate that that's been Tua all season. Once again, what we're ignoring is that those come from 3-step, quick decision, quick outs. Tyreek just beat this guy last night. Again, you're forcing this guy to step back 7 yards, and he stood there. It's a total difference. And when he gets it, he's 3 steps. He's touching it, it's going. It's touching it, it's going. This guy can't stand back in the pocket. He's barely 6'1". He's standing back there in the pocket, 7 yards deep. To your point, it's coming out like that because he's 7 yards deep and they're floaters and nobody is wide open. When you've seen him getting progress is when he's getting these 3-step joints and Tyreek gets a quick beat. It just I don't get it. I just didn't get it. Like
the coverage was too good. So when you drop into 7, is to let your wide receivers get open a little more.
Yeah.
But those extra steps didn't help because they couldn't get open. For some reason, they were dropping back and they were rushing 3, maybe 4 here and there.
I couldn't understand it. At that point, Spagnuolo, they're just looking at him like, okay, y'all just keep doing this all game. It's easy.
Yeah.
It's easy.
And they kept doing these fucking screens I literally like pounded the table last night because I was like, I don't know if
And
y'all
in
saw in the
bad
chat.
times,
I was like,
3rd
McDaniel
and
has to
13,
have
you throw
like
a
a
screen to Tyreek.
yeah. I was like, he has to have like a fucking over under bet on screens or something.
Yeah.
Like this shit ridiculous the amount of screens that we run. And I said this to the folks watching with me here at home. I've been talking shit about these screens all year. Bubble screens, wide receiver screen. We don't screen well as a team at all. When we do screens to the running back, we usually get caught for illegal man downfield. When we do wide receiver screens, they don't work. Bubble screens, they don't work. I can think of maybe 5 plays, not last night, all season, that were just positive screen plays. I don't mean like they were great, like holy shit, he got 20 yards up there. I mean like just positive. And they keep doing this shit over and over again. I don't understand the commitment to this play that is not working. You know what I mean? The shit it's ridiculous, man. It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say on this before we move on, because I want to make sure Houston gets their props also. We got to give them their flowers. Is my point was you play for tomorrow. And that's a concern that I'm gonna have with the Cowboys.
Great point.
Because you're playing safe for Tua. And I think the Cowboys have been playing safe all year for Dak on the turnovers, right? How many times do you guys see me in the chat saying, throw the fucking ball, stop being afraid, stop holding the ball, throw the ball?
Use your legs.
I'm hoping that through the he's been using his leg, but I'm hoping that through the playoffs, Mike McCarthy can get past that playing for today's shit. You're gonna have to make a risky throw at some point against a good defense.
Playing for tomorrow versus playing for today.
Right. And McDaniel, what's this, his second year? This is his first playoff game as a head coach. He's gonna have some learning to do. He needs to either coordinate with, well, there you go, his coordinator, his offensive coordinator, and come up with a plan where maybe he makes some calls and the coordinator makes some calls, or just hand it off, because his offense seemed like people were catching on by week 14, 15. In my opinion, it just seemed like if we cover this and we cover Tyreek, do our best there, then we're putting Tua in a bad situation. And while Tua can read the field, I think he can read the field in the moment. If you cover it, it gets tough. Again, Jalen Waddle to me is your X factor. Everyone says Tyreek. Jalen Waddle is the X factor because it's not your X receiver, it's your Y receiver.
Yeah, I would agree. The times that Tyreek has been, not major factor in games, Waddle has always been that blanket that bails him out. I can agree with that. But that's that's understanding usage of your personnel.
Right. The last thing I'll say on this when I'm talking about McDaniel's play calling, his coaching, decision making, all of the above when it comes to McDaniel, is what needs to be a major concern for the Dolphins going into this offseason from a coaching standpoint, maybe and probably from a player personnel standpoint as well. And I'm not just talking about Tua, I'm saying like the offense in general, right? Is that when you look at the numbers, right? Against playoff teams, they played 7 games against teams that were playoff teams. And in those 7 games, Miami's offense had 71 possessions. Those 71 possessions amounted to 12 touchdowns and 10 turnovers. In an offense that's as high powered as ours. Those numbers shouldn't be like that. That's a problem. That's a big fucking problem. You know what I mean? And they're gonna have to do something about it.
CJ Stroud, I shitted on him at the beginning of the season a little bit. Not really shitted on him. I just said that
a lot.
I just said Bryce Young was the better choice. But CJ Stroud in Houston had a home game yesterday against Joe Flacco and the Browns, and that high-powered defense that the Browns have had all season that just appeared to not be there yesterday. And they blew him out 45-14. CJ Stroud went for 274 and 3, no interceptions, 16 for 21. And that team, when you look at it on the surface, they don't have anyone that tells you I got to be scared of this person. Their top wide receiver is Nico Collins. Nothing tells you before this season that you need to be afraid of Nico Collins. From a tight end standpoint, you got, Schultz. Again, not anything to be
We had
afraid
a
of.
major drop yesterday. Major
Mhm.
drop.
Devin Singletary, who, fucking Buffalo's been telling us for years he's not the guy, right? So when you look at Houston, they don't have all the things, right? And on the defensive side, they've got some decent guys. D'Amico Ryans did a hell of a job, I think, with this team this year, and I think they're a scary team in the AFC. Thinking about everyone that's left, they are a trap game for anybody left in the AFC except for maybe Baltimore, which is who it's potential for them to see. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, they went out yesterday. They beat up on Cleveland. Joe Flacco looked like absolute dog shit. He had 2 interceptions that both of them turned out to be pick sixes. 34 for 46. He threw the ball 46 times. They lost their way, Cleveland. They ran the ball 20 times yesterday, to your point, VP. 20 times they ran the ball. Kareem Hunt had 8 of them. This guy hasn't done shit all year from a running standpoint. Receiving, yes, but not from a rushing standpoint. Jerome Ford, the guy who's been getting it done this year, had 9 carries for 17 yards.
That
I think
that defense is what really, to your point, Steve, they really were the problem. The kid out of Northwestern who I loved, Newsome, was out. But that
Greg Newsome.
defense,
I like that kid.
yeah, that defense totally. I don't want to hear it no more. I don't want to hear it about Cleveland's defense no more. Where you have my Jets that have had an abysmal non-working offense all season, and they found ways to deliver. Right, this Cleveland defense. If you watch the flow of that game, it was pretty tight. It was going well for Cleveland. They had the lead. The next series, after they go down and score, they give up that huge touchdown, and then the game is over. The momentum swings. Once Houston breaks that touchdown, now Cleveland feels like they got to pin their ears back and throw the ball. They abandoned the run. Flacco has no protection. Will Anderson is just getting in there. Receivers aren't getting open. Cleveland's defense really gave that game away. It was supposed to be a point where Cleveland's defense Cleveland's offense just needed to get 14 points, and Cleveland's defense is going to do the rest. Myles Garrett, he made a crucial mistake
yesterday.
One assist. Crucial mistake. Goes off sides, extends the play, extends the drive. He's going against his college rival in Tunsil. Tunsil is batting him down all day long. Once he was taken out of the game, there was nothing else left on Cleveland's defense. That whole defense, if I'm drafted next year, I'm going all defense if I'm Cleveland, because they need some help. They really got exposed yesterday.
So I would say two things. First, definitely shout out to CJ Stroud, D'Amico Ryans, and Houston overall. I said it last week, when they won the division. This team had the number 1 overall. I mean, I'm sorry, not number 1 overall. They had the second pick of the draft, and you not only win the division, you won a playoff game already. So they're way ahead of schedule right now. But with that said, man, I think that with Flacco, what you're seeing happen is the same thing you see happen with these other quarterbacks. And even though Flacco is a known commodity, I still think that we're seeing the same thing, right? You get a guy, the Giants, Daniel Jones goes down. They bring in Danny DeVito, right? Or sorry, what's the kid's name? Tommy DeVito. They bring in Tommy DeVito, and it's like, yo, this kid looks good, right? About 2 games go by, coaches get some film on him, and it's like, okay, it's time to knock this shit off. You know what I mean?
He's not good.
Right. And then you see that with like Josh Dobbs, right? Josh Dobbs comes to Arizona. It's like, oh shit. Comes to Minnesota. Oh shit. Now you got some film on him, and it's like, nah, we've had enough of that, And I think the same thing happened with Flacco. While Flacco is a known commodity, he's been out of the league for a while, and so he comes back and it's like, okay, let's look at some old film and let's also look at these, 4 or 5 games he started. And okay, cool, we got it figured out now. You know what I mean? And then they put a stop to that shit, especially when you're talking about a guy in D'Amico Ryans who is a defensive. He comes from the defensive side of the ball, So I think that was part of Cleveland's problem. But to EJ's point about drafting defense, Cleveland's problem next year, and I talk to you guys about this all the time on here in chat about the salary cap, right? I've been looking at the salary cap a lot these last couple years and like learning how it works and shit like that. And Cleveland has a huge fucking problem in their cap next year. And the reason why is that they tried to finesse the system with that Watson suspension and gave him the first year of his contract for only $1 million. Next year, his salary balloons from whatever it is this year. I think it's about 30 something million, maybe low 40 million to almost 60 million. And because his money is fully guaranteed, it counts 100% against the cap. You can't shift it in ways how you can like turn part of it to a bonus and do all, you know what I mean? They can't do that. It's all going to count against the cap. And now they're going to have to make some decisions. And they may have to go and get some cheap guys from other teams or draft or whatever in order to make these numbers work. Because in order to try to save Deshaun Watson some money to make him pick you, since he had the no trade, you tried to finesse the system. And now those chickens are coming home to roost next season.
Myles Garrett didn't show up yesterday at all. That's your big piece. They found a way to knock him out of the game, and no one else can get home. On defense,
right. 100%.
You got
right.
a young quarterback in CJ Stroud. I said a couple weeks ago that Bryce Young to me looks like he doesn't understand the speed of the game. To this point of his career. He doesn't realize that the defenders are faster than they were in college, and better, and you're getting the best of the best from all divisions and all conferences, rather. And CJ Stroud seems to get that. He seems to get that.
Stay there on what you just said, because if you think about it, right, you got these Alabama quarterbacks, Tua, Mac Jones, Jalen Hurts, and Bryce.
I've said this in the past. Alabama quarterbacks are cursed. I mean, Joe Namath is the last one to win the Super Bowl. They're cursed. None of them pan out. None of them pan out.
The alternative, the one thing that I will say, right? Houston has come on and they look good. They look better. But I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because they did come out of a division that was absolutely dog shit this year. Indy was trash. Jacksonville collapsed. They got a quarterback who's looking like he's Daniel Jones when we compare the numbers. Exactly the same numbers as Daniel Jones, a guy who everyone's saying has got to go. But because he's the pretty boy that came from Clemson, they're going to continue to try and build around this guy for whatever reason. So that division, and then Tennessee, who just, I think they underperformed. Vrabel got a hard deal at quarterback this year, and they got screwed. They lost. They didn't do well. So the Texans came out of a very easy division, and then in their wild card round, they get a team with a guy who just came off of the couch. Going into yesterday's game, he had 7 interceptions already. So let's not act like Joe Flacco was uncharacteristic yesterday or Houston made him do something different. He had 7 interceptions going into yesterday. He threw 2. He's had 9, and he's only been playing for like 6 weeks or something. So I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves on on the Texans, rather. I'm sorry, on Houston. They're going to have some tough tasks ahead of them. I do personally feel like they're a sleeper. But I think on the road is going to be a challenge for this young kid. CJ Stroud is good. I think a road game in the playoffs is going to be a tough task for him, whether it's in Buffalo, whether it's in, it just depends who wins, right? Whether it's in Buffalo, whether it's Kansas City, whether it's Baltimore, it's going to be a tough task for him.
But Steve, you also know this from the fact that you're a Cowboys fan, right? And we saw it as well in Cincinnati. When you don't have to pay your quarterback fucking ungodly sums of money, you can make a better team. It's how when people are like, how the fuck can San Francisco have all these players? It's because their quarterback only makes $800,000 a year. You know what I mean? Because he's on a 7th round rookie deal or whatever. You know what I mean? Now next year, when they got to pay him, that team's gonna look different. You know what I mean? Now, they might be able to massage the numbers and put some of the bigger numbers in the out years.
Let's also not forget though, Cleveland, when you're talking about injuries, and this is why injuries isn't an excuse for anyone, they've had a litany of injuries. You know, they had some injuries on the defense. They lost their starting tackles to begin with. They were actually out there last night playing with some 4-string dudes, and that's when Will Anderson and them were getting busy. I think Steve and me can agree. And let's also remember, DeMeco Ryans came into this game with a chip on the shoulder because Flacco dropped 200 yards to Amari Cooper on the Texans by themselves. But, you know, when you look at this game, that defense really let them down. The Cleveland had the lead. They were in a position to where at 14, it might have been like 14-7, something like that. I can't remember what it was. They were in a position that if the defense goes out and puts a stop to Houston, Cleveland can run the ball and do what they want to do. They gave up that huge score. The whole tide of the game changed. Myles Garrett was completely ineffective, and nobody else seemed like they could play football on that Cleveland defensive line. No one in the secondary wanted to make a tackle. No one in the secondary could stick to these guys on defense. And it just went out of hand. The thing that got them there, their bread and butter, which is the scary defense, is so great. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. Look like the Little Giants yesterday.
I mean, the defense didn't give up 2 pick sixes though, you know. So
yeah, but the reason at that point in the game where they're throwing anything to the wall is because Houston is getting out on them offensively. Again,
it was a collective effort. The Browns, they overachieved. They won 11-6. They made the playoffs without Nick Chubb. When Nick Chubb went down, everyone thought it was done. That they were done. Then
lost Chubb and then lost their quarterback.
Then lost their quarterback.
Starting tackles.
They lost their tackles. They lost their quarterback. They lost their backup quarterback. They lost their backup to the backup quarterback, and then they went and signed the guy off the couch. So for them to you know end and make the playoffs, right? With high hopes of potentially winning this game, I think a lot of people had them picked based off of that defense. They overachieved. The problem, I think, for them next year, to VP's point, is they got to figure out that whole shit with Deshaun Watson, because for 2 seasons, he's looked like that one season off washed him up. He's looked like he cannot play the quarterback position anymore. So they need to figure that out.
And that's kind of the point I was making when I was talking about, you know, what your quarterback gets paid, right? Because these first 2 years of Watson has been the time for them to try to like get it done, because they backloaded his contract. Whereas you look at a team like a Houston, you know, while they definitely overachieve, your quarterback is still cheap. So you can go out there this offseason. Steve just talked about how they don't really have anybody that scares you on the offense except for the quarterback, right? But you can go out there and say, hey, Stephon Diggs might be available. Derrick Henry's available. You know what I'm saying? T. Higgins is likely going to be available because Cincinnati not going to be able to pay him and Jamar Chase. You know what I'm saying?
They got pieces on offense. They got pieces.
I'm not saying they don't have pieces. What I'm like the point that Steve made, when you are scheming against this team, you're game planning. You don't think like, oh shit, we got to go against DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill. You're like, I got Devin Singletary. You know, just don't let them get too busy.
You talking about for Houston
and Nico Collins?
Yeah,
but here's the other.
So I'm saying that while he's cheap, they can go out and get some pieces and make this team dangerous next year. Where this year they were good, they can be dangerous next year. You know,
and
but
not only
Houston,
the
opposite. I'm not Houston, Cleveland.
Not only the quarterback thing though for Houston, they are in a shitty division we just talked about. They just won a playoff game. So aside from all of that, they're going to be attractive to someone who's going to go down there and be like, if I can make a difference here, we could be in the playoffs easily next year. We could win the division and get another home game next year. Simple, right? You could get anybody. It could be an aging guy. It could be, like you said, Stephon Diggs. It could be Terry McLaurin coming from Washington. There's some guys that are going to be available next year and some guys that'll be on the trade block, and it'll be attractive because it'll be an easy route to the playoffs with a young quarterback who you hope is only going to get better. We still got 4 games coming up this weekend to close out wild card weekend. The Bills and Steelers game was flexed to tomorrow. The Packers Cowboys game is today at 4:30 Eastern time, and then the Lions and the Rams are at 8:15 Eastern time in Detroit. Mike McCarthy is
Tampa and Philly is Monday as well.
Tampa, Philly is Monday. Mike McCarthy is hosting Green Bay today in Dallas. It's extremely cold, but they got a dome, so they can close it up and heat it up in there. The Cowboys haven't lost a home game in 2 years.
I expect that streak to continue. Wow, I like Jordan Love. I like the Packers this season, but I just don't think they have enough. And the team is playing very well overall. The offense, defense is playing well, and I just think, Jordan Love is essentially a rookie, and you're about to play one of the better defenses in a playoff atmosphere at home. I just think it's too many cards, too many things lining up against them in terms of their ability to win this game. Now, I mean, any given Sunday, right? Anything could happen, but just looking at this game on paper, I don't think Green Bay has a chance. I see the score being something like 27-10, 34-10, something like that. I don't think it's even close.
The Cowboys, to me, have to stop Aaron Jones. He hasn't been good all year, but he's a good running back. And we've been having challenges with stopping the run, the Cowboys, that is, all season, more so towards late in the season. So they've had some challenges there. And I think the X factor for Green Bay, if they're going to try and steal this game, is going to be Jair Alexander. If he can't D up, or if he doesn't shadow CD, it's going to be a long day for them because he is their secondary, right? And CD has shown that he is clear cut a number 1 wide receiver in this league. He's a top 3 wide receiver, not 1 or 2. Wait, I said that wrong. Not 2 or 3.
No, you said it right. You said it right. 40 and slip. You said you definitely were right.
Not 2 and 3.
You see what happens when your mouth tries to go against your brain.
And I think we'll see the reality today. We'll see a real wide receiver today. In a clutch situation. No, but I think Green Bay is they should have a long day. Obviously, game script is gonna, we got to make sure it runs in. As far as the Cowboys go, they got to run it in their favor. Keep the ball, don't make any mistakes, get out quick, score on the first drive. Like that's the winning formula for the Cowboys. They get out, they score quick on the first drive, and then they let the defense pin their ears back, and hopefully get a punt and get out quick. So I think the Cowboys should be able to win this game. It's a home game. They've been great at home. And barring any major injuries, they should be good.
I will say this: go Cowboys. I've been on the bandwagon, but at home they have been susceptible to quarterbacks getting off on the secondary. Even bad quarterbacks have thrown for a decent amount of yards against them. I think Jordan Love, if he can get some people going, he might make it a little interesting offensively. I think he's going to throw for a good amount of yards. I don't expect Green Bay to win. I would be extremely shocked if they win. But if they do win, I'm going to call it on the defense, on the Cowboys defense, because I think it's up to Micah and them to get home on this guy and make it a bad night for him. And they, Dan Campbell's got to do what he does. And this is that moment. It's got to be where you got to be dominant at home. Micah Parsons has to absolutely eat. You have to move him around. You have to just Let him be him and let him play this game the way that he was born to play. But I wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Love, puts up, to VP's point, 14 and maybe 250. But yeah, I'm looking for the Cowboys to win this out.
Green Bay is the underdog. They're on the road, and I think where it could hurt them, or it should hurt them, is I think Micah Parsons is going to get some calls today. I think the league and the officials have probably seen enough of he doesn't get calls, with the videos and all of that out there. And now he's been vocal to say, what the fuck? What's a better opportunity than against the underdog that people expect to win anyway, or lose anyway, rather, for them to say, all right, let's make do, let's make it right here, because later in the playoffs, it's gonna get, I think it gets challenging. It's gonna be different. So I think Green Bay is in trouble. Jordan Love, that is, I think he's gonna get hit today a lot. DeMarcus Lawrence has looked like, just, I don't know, revamped. He looks great. So I'm confident there. I feel good about that game. I'm really concerned for the Lions, though. The Rams are coming in. They're on a hot streak. Kyren Williams is something else. He is something else at running back. And like I told you guys, man, Matt Stafford does not get his flowers. I told y'all earlier in the season, this guy is the wide receiver maker. Puka Nacua breaking all types of records. I mean, and you guys call me absolutely crazy. Matt Stafford is that dude, and now he's going to go home to a city. They're going to give him his flowers. They're not going to boo Matt Stafford. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you go to Philly, they're a piece of shit city and shitty fans. They'll boo, their ex-players. I don't think Detroit boos Matt Stafford. I think Matt Stafford goes in there today, and I think it could be a long day for those Lions.
That's nasty.
What's that?
I mean, you saying they're not going to boost two things. First, I think you are just the cap that you're shooting on Matt Stafford is insane. You know what I mean? Like, the folks at Coca-Cola should call you to see if they can borrow some of that for their bottling. But
in what sense?
Matt Stafford is not that dude. Like, he's okay.
He's not.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Calvin
because
Johnson?
I remember
He's
being
flip-floppy. He's flip-floppy. He's flip-floppy.
Yeah,
DJ.
Steve. I remember being the guy when you were like, "Oh, Matt Stafford is the wide receiver maker," and I was the only one sitting here saying that dude is overrated. Calvin Johnson carried him for 8-9 seasons. VP was like, "Nah, Matt Stafford, no, he's good." Nah, you were on the Matt Stafford thing.
DJ. I've been saying Matt Stafford was overrated since he was drafted. I don't know. I've been saying that.
Okay. We're gonna have to do some research on this.
I hope.
I'm gonna get him.
I hope that Cliff was in the comments today, because he'll tell you. My brother has been telling me, dog, Stafford. I'm like, dude, the dude's overrated.
No, where were you? I remember having the debate, both of you.
Now, I'm not in the camp like you saying Calvin Johnson made Stafford.
Hedging your bet here.
Stafford is good. Stafford is good, but like, when I say good, he's good. Like, he's not. It's not like, this dude.
He had Megatron for 8-9 years.
Exactly.
He had Megatron.
He's serviceable. He gets it done. He can
make
the
Time out. Hold y'all fucking bum ass horses for just 1 second. He had Megatron, or did Megatron have him? No, he had Cooper Kupp, or did Cooper Kupp have him? He had Puka Nacua, or did Puka Nacua have him? Matt Stafford. Stafford. Stop right there.
Oh, okay. Calvin Johnson retired 3 years before Matt Stafford went to LA. What was he doing? Was he doing numbers in those years?
5,000 yards. 5,000 yards a year. What are you talking about? Go look at his career. Stop playing with me. 2012, Calvin Johnson set the NFL single season record, 1,964 receiving yards. Who was his quarterback?
Matt Stafford.
Okay. 2021, Cooper Kupp, second most receiving yards, 1,947.
So you went from 2012. You said you went from 2012 to 2021.
Hold on,
What
hold
what
on.
happened with
Let me
Matt
finish.
Stafford in between then?
Let me finish making my point. 2021, Cooper Cup broke second highest. Didn't break the record. 1947. Stafford's his quarterback. Puka Nacua, most receiving yards as a rookie. Who's his quarterback?
Again,
There's
what wide receivers
there's a
were good?
common denominator here. There is a common denominator here. Y'all gotta stop hating on Matt Stafford. I'm not saying that. Listen, I'm not saying Matt Stafford is Tom Brady. Look, Jared Goff went to the Super Bowl, right, with the Rams. They broke that team up and brought in Matt Stafford. What happened? Won a Super Bowl.
What receivers were good between 2012 and 2021 for Matthew Stafford? Who else did he make?
What's his name? Can't remember the dude's name. Oh, Nate Burleson.
Nate Burleson was not made by no Matthew Stafford. Stop.
Who made him? Who made him?
Nate Burleson wasn't even. No, he wasn't no world-beating wide receiver. He was decent. He's okay, and he played before Matt Stafford.
So here go Matt Stafford with Calvin Johnson, right? 2011, 5,000 yards. 2012, 4,900 yards. 2013, 4,600 yards. 2013, 4,600. 2014, 4,200. 2015, 4,200. Calvin Johnson retires in 2015, 4,300 the next year, 44 the following year, 37, 24.
Whoa.
24, he was hurt.
Okay.
He was hurt with 24.
Right. Half a season.
I didn't see the games play. He was hurt with 24. The following year, only 4,000. And then
only 4,000?
The better question is,
drop in production.
The better question is, again, if he is the wide receiver maker, the all-world wide receiver maker, who from 2012 to 2021 did he make? This guy said Nate Burleson. No.
Calvin Johnson was still there in 2012. So you got to go from post 2015.
Post 2015 to 2021. Who did he make in between? What other guy became an all-star caliber wide receiver in between that time?
Dog, if he's thrown for 4,400 yards, he did something.
Yeah, he just threw the ball a lot. He just threw the ball a lot. That's all he's ever done. Throw the ball a lot.
And also, Steve, to that point that EJ just made, when you're saying he's doing something, Tua in year 2, before McDaniel, before Tyreek, he missed 5 games and still threw for 3,600 yards with Devontae Parker. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, dog. Like,
this nigga finds a way to make it about the Dolphins.
I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to do that. I'm making a point. Though.
So check it out. You know who he made in 2016? Golden Tate, 1,000-yard wide receiver.
You mean the guy that came from Seattle? That was already
didn't do shit. Who had one? No, he had one catch, one big catch, and that was when they had the replacement.
1,000 yards won't make you a world beater, does it?
I didn't say world beater. I said he made a good receiver. 91 receptions for 1,000 yards. That's pretty damn good for Golden Tate.
Garrett Wilson got 1,000 yards with 4 different quarterbacks.
And if we consider Golden Tate and think about those years in between when Calvin Johnson was gone, he had a pretty good career with Matt Stafford. 91 catches in 2016 for 1,000 yards. 92 catches in 2017 for 1,000 yards. 2018, he was hurt. Still had 74 catches, 800 yards. 2019, hurt again. Only played 7 games. 2020 went to Philly at 278 yards. Matt Stafford makes guys good, man. I'm not saying
I won't concede on the Golden Tate. And the reason that I won't, it's a partial thing, is because the thing that Steve is saying to you, EJ, with EJ left. But the thing that you're doing here is he had 3 fucking 1,000-yard seasons with Matt Stafford in Detroit. 2 of those years were I'm sorry. 2 were without Megatron, 1 was with, and the best one was with Megatron.
Yeah, and the other ones were with Marvin Jones, another one who had 1,000 yards. Just stop. Marvin Jones had 1,000 yards in 2017, as did Golden Tate. Like this dude,
Matt Stafford's
you
fine.
got
I'm not saying he's a piece of shit. I'm saying I don't feel like he's he's some receiver whisperer or something. He can make all the throws. He's accurate, and he's okay. He gets it
Matt
done.
Stafford. All right, let me ask you a question: is Matt Stafford a Hall of Famer?
This is a tough question, and the reason why I say it's tough is because on its face, my initial answer is no. But because he won the Super Bowl and the career numbers that he has, combined with the fact that he now has a chip, he's gonna go in.
That is
Knowing
not
how they
why. Matt
knowing how
Stafford
they
has thrown
vote,
for
he's gonna go in.
56,000 yards in his career. 56,000, and he's not done. Come on, man. Y'all gotta stop. Y'all gotta stop. Y'all
I'm not hating on the guy.
discredit Matt Stafford because he was tied to Jim Caldwell, who couldn't do shit for shit. That's why.
Jim Caldwell's
That's
a
why.
good coach.
Stop it. Stop it right there. He got this. You guys discredit him because Matt Stafford was tied to Jim Caldwell in a shitty ass offense, and he still made shit happen. Matt Stafford is a Hall of Famer. 56,000 yards is not a guy that you could just say, well, he got the Super Bowl, so he gets in. Stop it. Stop it.
You're right. He would probably go in even without the Super Bowl. Looking at it at 56, I didn't know it was at 56. I didn't have the numbers pulled back up, but I just pulled them back up. 56,000 and counting because he's gonna play next season more than likely. So that probably gets to 60. He would go in even without the ring.
And let's be honest, Matt Stafford is again, I think I said this before. He's one of the Charles Barkleys of the Tom Brady era. Like Michael Jordan stopped a lot of guys from getting rings. Tom Brady stopped a lot of guys from getting rings. LeBron James should be stopping a lot of guys from getting rings, but him together with Steph make it, where it happens. But nonetheless, Matt Stafford, the Rams are going into the Lions. This is going to be welcome home, Matt. I don't think they boo him. I think they should, but they won't. It's a playoff atmosphere. Detroit loves that guy. They love him like he's like he's Eminem. So I think he's going to be comfortable there, and I think the Rams can go in there, and I think they can upset the Lions. How do you feel?
I just want to say one more thing real quick, on this 56,000 yards thing or whatever. Matt Stafford has 56,000 yards over what has he been, 13 years in the league, something like that. Came in 2009, 2023. So what's that? 14 seasons, and he missed some games or whatever. Dan Marino threw for 62,000 yards and he only played 16 years. Back when you could
oh my god,
murder
here's
somebody
the
on the field.
You always bring Dan Marino up about the yards that he's had, but you forget to mention that he was selfish as fuck and didn't want running backs.
Because this
guy hated running backs.
That's why I don't usually even comment on it when you say it. But anyway, let's not get off topic or whatever. Lions, Rams. I think the Rams win this game. Like my head says Rams, but my heart wants to say Lions because I just feel like Dan Campbell is gonna have those guys ready, and the team reflects their coach, and I feel like they're gonna show up and they're gonna play hard and get it done. But like I said, my head says Rams.
I'm in a situation today with the Rams and the Lions, the same situation I was yesterday. Actually, with both games, I ended up betting on the Browns and the Dolphins. But as I put both of those bets in, I was like, Houston's home and they can probably, pull it out. And then I started to think the Chiefs are the better team. They have the better quarterback. They have a guy who's better prepared for this.
They got a better coach.
Like I felt like the Chiefs were going to win. I still went with Miami. And I feel like with the Lions, I'm in that same situation. I feel like I want to bet on the Rams, but the Lions on paper should win this game. Like they got a great defense. They've got good wide receivers. They got a serviceable quarterback. But I don't know how do you feel about everybody saying this stuff is scripted? The NFL is scripted. I think we've been joking around with it for years, but everyone says, "Oh, Stafford's playing against the Lions," but people forget that Jared Goff was with the Rams and they went to the Super Bowl.
Right.
Like this,
I don't like I've never believed that since what's his face said it like 3 years ago or whatever. Who was it? Arian Foster who said that?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Um
I don't believe
I've never believed it, but sometimes, things happen. I mean, you can say scripted, and scripted is no different from people who believe in religion, like, so this miracle happened, it's like a bunch of seemingly random events came together and this thing happened to people. So it was a miracle, you know what I'm saying? So like it's the same shit here or whatever. I think for the NFL, they love it because it creates this drama where it's like, oh shit, the Rams threw away Jared Goff, and now he just made this team win their first division in 30 years. The Detroit threw away Matt Stafford. They won a Super Bowl, and now they're facing their old teams. The storylines, Green Bay and Dallas with McCarthy facing Green Bay and all. You know what I mean? It's just a storyline. But I think Tyreek having to face the Chiefs or whatever, So it makes for great TV. You know what I mean? But I don't think there's no script. I will say, however, I do think that the league tells the refs, we want you to look out for this, look out for that, or whatever, and then the refs, call the games certain ways. I do believe that. You can't make me not believe it. You know what I mean? So, but I don't think it's scripted in any kind of way.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I don't think it's scripted at all. I do think the league tells them to watch out for stuff, but also I think it gets crazier now that the league can overturn stuff without somebody, if it's blatantly obvious, right?
Right.
Like that's where it gets kind of funky, and this is where, to me, when you talk about records and stuff, and you talked about Dan Marino, and there's a lot of other records out there that are going to get broken, not only because of the 18 games, but also now you have replay. So all those errors that were made over the past years, of yesteryear, you don't get those now. It's and obviously passing is going to be different. They're protecting the quarterback, all that stuff. But just general records like the force out rules and stuff like that changing. There's just so much. It's similar to hand checking in the NBA. The league is completely different. There's so many eyes on it. It's kind of funky, but you got another
but not just that though, Steve. Also too, especially when you talk about quarterback records, is that these guys from like the Marino, Elway, that kind of thing. These guys had to sit before they got to play, whereas now a lot of these quarterbacks, they not only do they have the additional game because we added another week to the schedule, but they're playing as rookies. So even if they don't have a good rookie season, they can still, like I just pulled up Tom Brady's thing, right? I mean, he played an extremely long career, right? So it's hard, even though he has almost 90,000 yards, it's hard to really, kind of look at him as the standard because most of these quarterbacks aren't going to play more than 20 years, right? But looking at Brady's career numbers in 2000, his first season, he only played one game and had 6 yards. He had 3 attempts for 6 yards, right? And then you go to year 2, and he has a 2,800 yard season, and then after that is where things kind of take off, right? But and even then, once they take off, it's like 3,000, 3,000, 3,000, 4,000, 3,000, almost 5,000, and then once he hits 4,000, that second time, he basically has 4,000 yards pretty much every year except for one. And in the years where he doesn't have the 4,000s, one of them was he had 3,900, and then another one was 3,500, and all the rest are either 5,000 yards or high 4,000. You see what I'm saying? And so that's why these records I think aren't going to stand. It's just that these guys are playing sooner and longer.
And it's just a different game. Like you think about the number of rushing attempts versus passing attempts are just crazy. But there's still 2 other games on the weekend. They are tomorrow. 4:30 p.m. we got a Steelers going into the Bills. because that game was moved. I think that was the NFL. I don't think that was the governor. I know you gave the governor the credit, but I think it was more the NFL and the
From what
Bills
I read,
organization.
the NFL was looking at it, and the governor, like, essentially was telling them, like, we can't have first responders working the game because there's too much shit happening. They got other work we need them to do. And then, like, in council, like, I don't think the governor flexed and was like, this shit ain't happening. But I think, you know what I mean? They were like, yo, like, fuck are we doing here? You know what I'm saying?
It only makes sense. Like, playoff tickets are too expensive. People are, she said in a press conference, stay home if you're from Pittsburgh, if you're a Pittsburgh fan, right?
Yeah.
And to make that trek in that kind of snow, that kind of weather, I'm making it. If I pay $500 for a ticket, like, I'm not gonna stay home just because the weather's bad. So there's that. Then you got the tailgating. The type of tailgating they do in Buffalo is different. They be
Yeah.
breaking tables and shit. It's too cold for that. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of casualties to happen in Buffalo.
Fans
They're
are
not,
fucking insane.
yeah, they're just not realistic with the things that they do. But Pittsburgh's going into Buffalo. Buffalo doesn't get a weather advantage like Kansas City did yesterday because Pittsburgh is used to playing in this shit.
Right.
So I think I think it'll be a pretty good game. Pittsburgh's defense has been on all season. Mason Rudolph is finally getting his shot. He's finally getting his flowers. And then it's another game for me that I feel like, should I make a bet because, the numbers look great for the Steelers, as far as the odds, or do I stick to my guns and because I know that, there's like an 85% chance that the Bills are going to win this game. How do you feel about this game?
I think the Bill. Obviously, I want Pittsburgh to win. I like Tomlin. I like the Steelers as an organization overall. I like Tomlin. I can't stand the Bills because they're a division opponent, but I also just really can't stand Josh Mahomes. Josh Mahomes. Josh Allen.
You just put them all together, huh?
Because I literally was going to say I can't stand Josh Allen, and I'm getting to the point where I can't stand Patrick Mahomes. Like, watching, he complains so much during the games. The shit is ridiculous, yo. It is insane how much he complains to the refs about shit, But anyway, so I hope the Steelers win. I don't think they have enough. I just don't think that they're well coached. They're gonna be prepared, but I just don't think they have enough to get past this Bills team. Now, the one thing I think that Pittsburgh has in their favor, or two things that they have working for them, is one, the weather is not going to be an advantage for Buffalo the way it would be like if they had to play the Dolphins in Buffalo.
Mhm.
And it wasn't even a factor for them last year against the Dolphins. They only beat us by 3, with Skylar Thompson playing. So that the weather is not going to be a factor because Pittsburgh gets cold as shit there. And Buffalo has essentially been playing in the playoffs for the last like 5 weeks.
Right.
You know what I mean? And at some point, I don't know if you can sustain playing at that level for this long. You know what I'm saying? And
Yep.
so, they could be due for a slip,
Josh Allen, he's a turnover machine, right? And that hasn't changed. He hasn't been
Yep.
more efficient. He hasn't been a better quarterback. He hasn't protected the ball anymore. And against the Steelers team, with a defense that they have, turning the ball over, it can be really, really detrimental to the game for you. I feel like if he gets out there and he makes a mistake early, the Steelers can get out and run on them because they got 2 good running backs and Najee Harris. I mean, good is probably doing a lot in that sentence, like you say, but they have 2 serviceable running backs. Najee Harris, who can go between the tackles, and Warren, who you can split out or do whatever, right? He's a jack of all trades. So I think they can get it done. A big part to me in this game, an X factor, I think, is going to be George Pickens. Like, this guy he's got to grow the fuck up. Like, it can't be every game where people are like, this guy's not putting his all out there. When he gets the ball, he seems like he's engaged, he's blocking, he's doing what he needs to. When he doesn't, you see this guy not even starting his routes. If he knows it's a run play, he's not even starting his routes. So you're giving the corner the opportunity to step up and stop these plays. It's just, he's got to grow up, man. And Tomlin has to either, if he sees that this game, like if it's not there, it's not there. You know, he's gonna get Tre'Davious White on him, right? Is Tre'Davious White playing? I don't
Uh,
think.
I
I don't
haven't
think I.
seen the inactives yet.
Oh, okay. I thought he got
I don't
hurt
think they have
earlier
to
in
put
the
it out until
season,
I think you don't. I
but
think you only have to put out the final injury report the day before the game.
got you. But if he gets locked up, right, George Pickens, that is, he still has to run those routes. Like this is the playoffs. This isn't the regular season. You're not out like and if Tomlin sees that happening, I think he's got to grab him by his face mask or sit him down at halftime and say, "Look, if you're not moving, we're gonna have a problem. You're gonna get benched." Like
Yeah,
that's just the way it goes. Um, Pittsburgh can steal this game. I think Buffalo wins it. Unfortunately, I think the spread. I don't know if it's changed, but it was something like 10. I do have the Steelers covering that. I have the Steelers covering 10 because I don't think there's going to be a lot of passing in this game.
yeah, I agree. I think they should be able to cover 10. And then and also if it's gonna be a running game like that, I mean, that's kind of the Steelers' bread and butter. Play good
Yep.
defense, run the ball. You know what I mean? So I think that works to their favor a little bit more. Now on Buffalo side, they can run the ball with what the fuck's his name? God damn it.
James Cook.
James Cook. And then they also can do design runs for Allen, so they can spice it up a little bit in that aspect. But I think this game is going to be a little. I don't think 10, I think 10 points is too much. And I'm sure Vegas knew the weather was bad, so I'm not sure why the spread is that big. But
It moved a little bit. It's at 9.5 right now. 9.5 to Buffalo. But that's still, I mean, it's 10, right?
yeah, two score spreads are always kind of dangerous. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
when they had us at a two score spread against Carolina. It was like, yeah, that makes sense. You know what I mean? But like this is two playoff teams, and you got a 2-score spread. Like that seems a bit much.
Especially in again, like you said, playoff time. People have, if you're up by 14 or whatever late, you're telling your guys to stay healthy, right?
Yeah,
Like if there's a real limited amount of time on the clock, then there's a chance that you get it down within 10 easily. So I think Pittsburgh covers that. I hope they win the game. I don't think they will though.
yeah, same.
Tomorrow we have also the late game is Philly coming into Tampa down here in Florida, where we'll finally get a decent weather game um without all the cold and snow. Philly is going to be without AJ Brown, which is going to be a big loss for them. Jalen Hurts is still dealing with the finger issue, which they tried to tell everyone wasn't broken or fractured.
Is it broken or is it dislocated?
They said it was just dislocated and it wasn't broken. It looked
Okay.
broken when we seen it.
Yeah.
They just, Philly is banged up. Pause. They're banged up. And they're gonna go into a Tampa team, but on the bonus side, Baker Mayfield. Like, I always feel good if the guy that I have to beat is Baker Mayfield. So, coming into Tampa, it looks like Philly is the favorite, 2.5. Tampa's getting 2.5. Over under 43. How do you feel like this game is gonna go?
I would like Philly if they weren't dealing with the injuries, and especially given the fact that Jalen Hurts is dealing with an injury in his throwing hand, and it's on his throwing hand, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so he's dealing with an injury on his throwing hand, and he doesn't have his number one target, and they've looked like shit over the last 6 weeks. I think they went 1-5 or something like that over the
Yeah.
last 6 weeks. So I like Tampa Bay in this game, man. I actually do. And I said this, I've been on Tampa Bay all year when I keep saying like Baker is not gonna go out there and like light it up for you, but he's serviceable enough. And that team is still enough of the team that won the Super Bowl with Brady to still be able to ball with a quarterback who's serviceable. And for Baker, even given I agree with a lot of what you said. Well, I feel good if I'm playing against Baker. He got a lot on the line. His contract was. I've been talking about his contract. The shit was layered with incentives. and he hit a lot of them motherfuckers.
He
Made
did.
himself an extra. He made more money in incentives this season than he did in base salary. So he made his base salary was $4 million. He made 4.2 in incentives this year, and he had $1 million incentive if they made the playoffs, and then he gets an extra, I think it's 250 or 300 for every playoff game he wins. So,
He got something to play for,
he got something. He playing for something, and he's trying to get a contract.
and he's trying to get that starting job. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think they give him a long-term deal. He can either get franchised and get paid $35 million, or they could give him a Geno style deal. Fucking 3 years, $100 million, put all the guaranteed money in year 1 and 2 so they can walk away in year 3. But he's playing for something. And I think Tampa Bay will get this game.
Yeah, I think Tampa wins this game. To your point, Philly, Jalen Hurts, his fingers fucked up. He doesn't have AJ Brown. Devontae Smith is there. DeAndre Swift is there. So I mean, there's still ways for the Eagles to get out there. I think Goddard is back. I'm almost sure of it, 99%. So there's ways for the Eagles to get on the board. But Mike Evans is a man possessed. He's been playing excellent, all season. Chris Godwin finally remembered that he's a good wide receiver, and he doesn't need Tom Brady to catch the ball. And they got a pretty good running back in White. So they can absolutely get it done. I do think the Buccaneers are going to pull this game out. And I really want them to win this game, of course, because I don't like the Eagles or their fans. But the Eagles had about as much of a collapse as the Dolphins. I remember some certain Eagles fans when they were 10-0 saying, "Oh, well, we'll be 10-1, or we're 10-1, and we're the only team that's 10-1, so that makes us the best team in the league." That shit changes quick.
Yeah, it does, man. They it's been an epic collapse. And I was talking to my brother, and I think that if Philly gets bounced tomorrow, that Sirianni's gone. I said this to you guys in chat, and my brother's like, "Nah, man, come on, man. The Eagles, are you serious? They got to give this guy a chance. He just got there. They went to the Super Bowl, blah blah blah." And I'm like, you start off 10-0, you have this epic collapse to finish the season. You had a game where it's like, okay, we got to win this game. Plus, we need Dallas to lose to win the division. And Dallas is playing the Commanders, right? But any given Sunday, you never know, right? The Commanders played you guys well last year, week 18. So, maybe they get it done, right? But even if you, the coach, aren't scoreboard watching, somebody in your staff should be. And once this game is the Dallas game, is out of hand, and given your game is already out of hand, why the fuck are your people still in there? And then you lose AJ Brown, and then you get Jalen Hurts hurt, right? And then if you say, okay, that's football, that kind of shit happens. You know what I mean? You want to go into the playoffs strong and not, on a downer. Okay, fine, I got you. I don't agree, but I got you, right? Reports of this dude losing the locker room, you can't have it. Players don't believe in him. Coaches don't believe in him. When he's given the rah-rah, they'll be like, yeah, we heard that shit before, So, like when Meek Mill said, "Hold up, wait a minute, y'all thought I was finished," they're like, yeah, you done,
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, exactly.
I think he's gone. I think he's gone. Unless this playoff run is deep, I think he's gone.
Yeah, especially with Belichick coming available, which we're going to talk about next. But the last thing I'll say on this for the Eagles is I think partially on their offense and for Jalen Hurts, it's almost like a now or never type of thing, because you got Lane Johnson, who's old. You got Jason Kelce, who's old. There's no telling if those guys come back and if Jalen Hurts is going to be able to get the type of protection that he's gotten in the past. You also have damn it, I can't remember the defensive guy that's been there forever.
I know you're talking about. I can't think of his name right now, but I know you're talking about.
Yeah. They're going to start losing some guys to age, and sure, they got younger in the draft last year, but that young isn't looking great right now. And it's the seasoned guys that have gotten them where they're at. So the Eagles need to go deep, pause, if they're going to keep it going with Sirianni. We talked about it week 1 or even before that. The coordinators, them losing those guys was huge. Those were the guys that made the team last year. And sure, they started out 10-0 or 9-0, 10-1, but it was a quick collapse as soon as they started to get to the tougher part of their schedule. Or actually, no, they played good in the tougher part of the schedule. They got to the
Yeah.
easier part of the schedule, and it similarly to the Dolphins, people found out that if you spy this guy, play good coverage, and make him make a throw, Jalen Hurts, that is,
Mhm.
then you can win these games, and that's what's happening.
Yeah.
You know, how do you feel about Belichick switching gears, retiring? That came out this week.
You know, this is tough for me because I don't like Belichick at all, right? But I have to recognize like what he's done in the league. You know what I mean? I'm not necessarily sure that it was the right move, right?
Or not
You know,
retiring. Did I say retiring? I'm sorry.
yeah, you said
Moving
retire.
on.
He didn't retire. Yeah, you know, he was fired. So, you know, they made it say it was a mutual. He still wants to coach, and so if he ain't coaching there no more, he was fired. You know what I'm saying? Whether, you know, however they came to the agreement or whatever. At the end of the day, Robert Kraft told him, "You're not going to be the coach anymore." So,
The writing was
you
on the
know,
wall.
yeah, either get fired or we can do this thing gracefully and have a press conference and you go out looking good. You know, your call. You know, but you're not coaching here no more. You know, your key
Right.
part won't work after tomorrow. So, but you know, I'm not sure that it was time, right? Because when you look at the coaches that are gonna be available for teams to hire, and I know that they've already hired their coach in Jerome Mayo, right? Shout out another black coach in the league. But when you look at what was available before they hired this guy, the best guy available is him. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
like, why move on? Bill Belichick is a defensive minded coach, and that defense has been top notch this season. As bad as the offense was, the defense has been really fucking good. You know,
Yeah.
and you can say this guy is not good on a young quarterback like a Mac Jones, like a Bailey Zappi, and those guys like that. Okay, but I would also argue those guys just aren't that good. You know, maybe go out there and get him a seasoned veteran like a Russell Wilson or potentially a Kirk Cousins that could be available. You know, go out there and get him somebody like that, and then see what happens when you get a better quarterback and you pair it with that good defense that they have. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But I don't think it was time. I mean, they were bad the last couple years, no doubt. But this shit happens. You know what I mean? They just lost their Hall of Fame quarterback. Their 6-time Super Bowl winning Hall of Fame quarterback. They lost them. It's hard to rebuild from that. Like everybody, you know, I think teams look at teams like the 49ers and it's like, oh, 49ers lost Joe Montana, picked it right back up with Steve Young. You know,
Mhm.
the Green Bay lost Favre, picked it right back up with Rodgers. It don't always work out like that. Some teams spend years trying to fucking find a replacement for the guy who was their GOAT. Everybody doesn't just get it right away. You know what I mean? Sometimes this shit takes a while. You know what I mean?
Yep.
How long has fucking Cincinnati been trying to replace Boomer Esiason? I don't even think he was that good, if I'm being honest, honestly. You know,
Right.
how long have Denver been trying to replace John Elway? And while you can say, okay, yeah, they won after Elway, that's because they brought in Peyton Manning off the street. You know what I mean? But it's not easy. It's not like you can be like, okay, Brady retired. Let's go to the quarterback store and get a guy off the shelf and just pick up right where we. This shit don't work like that.
Right.
So,
Yeah. No, you gotta hit. It's like gambling. It's like being at the casino. You're gonna have a few up hands, and
exactly,
it just doesn't always continue that way.
exactly. And even when you think that you hit, you get the top. Everybody's talking about Caleb Williams coming out of USC this year, right? And Caleb Williams is going to be the most coveted quarterback, and he's likely going to go if Chicago decides to move on from Fields. He'll go to Chicago or whoever picks him in the top 2-3 picks or whatever. And it's like, okay, you got the best guy, but I mean, wasn't what's his name? The guy before Manning was Ryan Leaf. I think that's what it was,
Yeah.
right? You know what I mean? He was the best guy at one point. You know what I mean? You've had a lot of guys.
Jamarcus Russell was the best guy.
Marcus Russell, and it don't always work out that way. College talent doesn't always transition to the pros,
Right.
at every position, but especially the quarterback position because it's so hard.
I give Bill Belichick his flowers. I always, say he deserves it. I'd still think Tom Brady was what made it, right? I think together they made it great. He played his parts. Josh McDaniel played his parts. Um, but to your point, I don't know that he was fired, right? I think that it really was mutual, and I think it was mutual in the sense that Bill Belichick probably went to them and was like, "Hey, look, I'm gonna retire. I'm thinking of retiring specifically because this division is getting far too good, and you guys aren't doing shit to get me better talent, right? You drafted, Mac Jones. We haven't gotten any better. We're still trying to ride with this guy. You didn't bring any wide receivers in for him to help him out. At running back, we decided to go Ramondre Stevenson, and then we brought in an old Ezekiel Elliott. Like, we're not doing anything to get better. The best talent they've brought in since Tom Brady left was Hunter Henry at tight end. Like, this is the best offensive talent that they've brought in, right?
Right.
And I feel like, Belichick wants to get out of that division. I feel like if they weren't going to mutually part ways, then he would have retired because he didn't want to get stuck in a division with the Miami Dolphins, who are getting better than what he's used to. The Bills, who are much better than what he's used to. Even the Jets, who are coming on and being better than what he's used to. Now he's wasting his time at 72 years old trying to fight an uphill battle. I think if he's smart, he goes to the NFC South. He goes to Atlanta. He tries to find a quarterback for that team, makes moves. They got two good running backs, Algier and Bijan. They got a tight end. They got Drake London. They've spent a lot in offense, and they've got some pretty good defensive guys that they've signed, through free agency. So if you go out and get a quarterback, and now you're in a division that's really not that good. We just talked about Baker Mayfield being the guy who's leading that division. You got the Saints, who got a Derek Carr. Like, that shit in Carolina, who's got a rookie quarterback who they're still trying to figure out what's going on. So if I'm Bill Belichick, I'm going to Atlanta. That's almost checking your ticket to the playoffs, right? Almost, barring any type of collapse or something like that. But that's where I think he ends up. And I got to give him his flowers. I give him, and I was thinking back, like, so it was him and Saban, right, this week. And I'm like, man, these guys are some old dudes, right? And they've been around for a long time. And people give them their props or take their props for stuff that they did or didn't do in the league. But the one thing I didn't hear a lot of people talk about is these guys are responsible for a lot of, when we talk about sports today, right, especially NFL, these guys are responsible for a lot of young black men's lives, right? We talk about in these leagues where the leagues don't have people set up, to counsel these guys money wise or behavior wise. Belichick was one of those guys who told these guys, yo, stay out the fucking bullshit. And if you want to be part of that, then you can't be part of this team, no matter who you are or what you do, right?
Yeah.
They molded and they were responsible for a lot of young black men's lives from 17 years old and on. If you start with Saban and then you move into the NFL and so on. And, I don't hear them getting a lot of, props for that, for lack of a better word. And I think they deserve it. I think absolutely, not only them, but any of these long-standing coaches, the the Pete Carrolls of the world, the Andy Reids of the world, these guys are responsible for some of these guys' lives, and they keep them out of trouble.
Right. No, I think that's a good point. I think what's the name, Calipari, the guy at Kentucky, he makes a point of saying, like, he tells all his guys, like, hey, when you get that contract, man, take this much money, set it to the side, don't ever touch it, let it sit in the bank, draw interest, and you'll be good forever. And then if you get the next contract, then whatever. But he tries to give them some advice. But I think that you're right with Saban, man. Reggie Bush said something this week, and I actually agree with it. Reggie Bush said he thinks NIL is why Saban retired, because now he can't have 70 5-star recruits on the team all at one time, because now people are like, I'm going somewhere else, I'm trying to get paid, and so but still, a lot of guys they brought into the league, a lot of responsibility, so definitely shout out to them on it, for a great career. And as always, fuck Nick Saban, I will never let it go. So kudos on the career, and also fuck you. So
Yeah. If you had to pick one team, where do you think Belichick goes next year? I still say Atlanta is probably his best option. It's very possible that he ends up with the Chargers or Las Vegas, but I think or even Philly, right? But where do you think Belichick ends up next year?
I like the pick of him going to Atlanta. Um, I I think he could actually do well in Vegas as well, but you're gonna be in a tough division. You got to play Mahomes
Right.
twice a year. You know, the conference overall is gonna be tough. So I don't think that's a good landing spot for him. I think Atlanta probably would be the best spot for him, but also I think Philly as well if they get rid of Sirianni. I think Philly would probably like to go the route that you talked about in chat with Vrabel. You may have said it earlier, I don't remember. But with Vrabel, but you know, it's like I said to you guys in the chat. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you want Diet Coke or Coke, just get the Coke. So if
Right.
Vrabel and Belichick are available at the same time, just get Belichick.
Right.
and
Or
and
get
you already
both.
got. I mean, you
Maybe.
could, but I don't know if Vrabel wants to go back. Belichick ain't going to be a coordinator, and I don't know if Vrabel's
No,
gonna
of
gonna
course
take
not.
a. I don't think he's going to take an underling role at this point.
Right. Yeah. I think Vrabel's got people lined up. I think he's gonna have people lined up.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
it's not likely that he'll be a coordinator. I hope Belichick doesn't go to Philly. I don't want him in our division. So if you're listening, Bill, Atlanta, the weather's better, the fans are better, the owner's better. They'll take care of you. What else do we have? Lakers look like shit. Lakers are probably they're looking like they may not make the playoffs. Stephen A went at your boy Jason Whitlock this week.
Yeah, that was crazy, man. Like, you know, like it seems like he's a little bit more unplugged on his podcast. I mean, for
Mm-hmm.
obvious reasons, but I kind of agree with what Shannon Sharp said on his podcast about it. You know, and it kind of goes to that thing I always say to you guys about like politics, where they say you don't punch down. You know what I mean? And Shannon Sharp basically said, you know, while he understands why Stephen A got back at him or whatever, like why give this guy airtime on your podcast?
Right.
Because he's trying to use you to bring himself up. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And you know, Jason Whitlock, you know, I'm not a fan of this guy. He has gotten, you know, I'm glad Stephen A gave him the business, but I probably should have just ignored him, just because, like I said earlier, this guy's like, or like Shannon Sharp said that I'm agreeing with. This guy is essentially using you to elevate himself.
I think Stephen A is losing sight of the fact that he is him. Like he is one of them. In the sense of you don't need the shock value. You don't
Yeah.
have to go out there and have the Cat Williams like interview, right? Like you've set the blueprint. You don't have to follow someone else's blueprint. He set the blueprint for hating the Cowboys no matter what. No matter what happens, win or lose, as good as they are, as bad as they are, he's going to hate the Cowboys, and it's worked for him.
Yeah.
Skip on the other side of it. Win or lose, he's going to love them, and it's worked for him. And now you see everyone following that blueprint. Stephen A doesn't have to go out there, to your point, and punch down. He doesn't have to go out there and get this shock value and try to go viral on the internet to be that guy. He's already that guy.
Right.
You know, going out on the limb and showing, I can be, you know, a tough guy. Also, I'm not always the corporate guy. I can, you know, say fuck you and, you know, you bastard and this, that, and the third. Like all right, we get it, but you don't need that. Like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You're still him.
Right. Like we talked about this with Cat Williams, right? Since you mentioned him, when you were asking, should Kevin Hart respond? And I'm like, no, for what? You know what I mean? Like, Cat said what he said. We thought it was funny. It was entertaining. Some of it is definitely bullshit. Some of it is probably likely very true. You know, some of it we can tell was true. Oh, you know what I mean? But
Mhm.
you know, at the end of the day, you're Kevin Hart. You then made, you know, probably $200-300 million in your career. Your name is huge. Like, why get involved with Cat Williams? You know, Cat Williams is a great comedian. He's probably one of the greats or whatever, you know. But at this point, you're punching down. You know what I mean? He said what he
Yeah.
said. and you just move on because you still got bags to get, you know?
Lots of them. Lots of them. And he said, he called up ESPN and stuff like that and cleared it, but still, like that still could be. I mean, ESPN can clear it ahead of time, and then if it doesn't sit so well or has a bad taste in someone's mouth, he's contract coming up in 2 years. Stephen A. That
Right.
is, with
Right.
ESPN. Like,
18
just
months.
don't put yourself in that type of position. It just doesn't make sense to me. And now, of course, Stephen A. is big enough, pause, to where he can go out and create his own brand, right? He can create whatever he wants, right? Like Don Lemon is coming out with something. Regardless of what happens, but having that type of back in the ESPN, I mean, that's a little bit different. The Disney, that's a little bit different. So
I think he's gonna leave ESPN.
We'll see.
I mean, like the last few years, you've heard Stephen A. talking about how much he gets paid, like complaining about it, like on air. I've heard him say this, and you look at, Stephen A. being on the highest rated show on the network, the most viewership on the network of all their shows, and then they bring in a guy in Troy Aikman and Buck, Joe Buck. There you go. I was gonna call him Ken Buck, but I know that's not his name. But that's a congressman's name. That's why I didn't say it. But they bring in Joe Buck and Troy Aikman and give them that huge. Both of them get huge contracts. They bring in Pat McAfee, huge contract, and Stephen A. Smith got to be sitting here saying like, "Yo, what the fuck? I have a bigger audience than Pat McAfee. I've been on the network longer than him. Like, how's this happening? You know what I mean? So if they come with anything less than what they gave McAfee, I think he walks."
I agree there. I think a slight difference is Pat McAfee brought a huge following with him also, right? So Stephen A., I think he was a writer, he had his little shows or whatever, but he didn't have this type of following before. Like, he was the B guy to Skip when he first started, and then he took over when Skip left or whatever. So he's built his following and his brand, largely through ESPN. So I think that's a slight difference there, but it's similar to quarterbacks, right? Patrick Mahomes is a far better quarterback than some of the guys that are getting paid more than him today, right? It's going to come, time came to Pastor this year where they went through and they made it right in Kansas City, right? They restructured him and said, hey, let's get you caught up to these other guys. And I think they'll do that. I think that'll happen with Stephen A. He's going to have a decision to make, though, because do you stick with like you said, is he going to stick with ESPN, Disney, the big corporations? Or if I'm Stephen A., he could probably go out there and start his own fucking network. That's how big he is. Pause again. I don't know if it's going to be as big right out the front, but for him, if you're talking about monetizing, I think he can make more on his own than he can, through a contract with ESPN.
Yeah, and really, because of how big he is, even if the next thing, if he leaves ESPN doesn't pan out, he can do the next thing like as a cash grab, and then if that don't work out, go somewhere else. So, like as an example, I mean, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard people saying that Netflix may want to get into the podcast game, kind of like how Spotify is, and Netflix just hands out money. So Netflix could fuck around and give Stephen A. like a Joe Rogan style contract, like he has with Spotify, and then he does his podcast on Netflix, makes a huge bag, and then it don't work out, and then he just goes somewhere else or whatever, back to sports TV or whatever,
Or he can go align with somebody like a Peacock. Right, Peacock is trying to get into this streaming sports. Paramount, all of these other streamers are looking to get into streaming sports. And why don't I pair with them? Because I have, I have the following to make people come watch my show. And now I create a show with these guys. I get the live sports somehow, or they get the live sports somehow. And now not only is he doing a show, but he's broadcasting. There's so much more that he could be doing, and he can bring talent with him. So you got the people that are, maybe they're independent or they work for smaller brands. They'll absolutely follow and go with a Stephen A. and create it. He'd bring in a Jamel Hill or Mike Wilbon with him and guys like people like that. And now you've turned into competition for ESPN, especially in our culture.
And instead of a Peacock, go to Amazon.
Or Amazon, right?
Because they already got the NFL. I'm pretty sure they're trying to get the NBA bag.
Oh, they'll get the NBA.
Yeah, and then now
and they can
you
afford it,
basically,
right?
yeah, you
That's one
basically
of the
do first
companies
take on
that
Amazon.
have. Yeah, you got that's one of the companies that have the money to go toe to toe with a Disney.
Yep.
So yeah, it makes sense, and they've already got the direct to consumer platform with Amazon Video. So yeah, there's opportunities for this guy. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. It's going to come fast. Pause. But it'll be interesting to watch, man.
Yeah.
What else? Anything else we got on the docket?
I mean, sports wise, nah, but
Lots of
sports heavy
bombings
stuff.
going on.
Yeah, we bombed Yemen, us and the British. They bombing over not just the weekend. It probably started. I think it started on Thursday, and I think they've continued throughout the weekend or whatever. Essentially, what's been happening is that the Houthi rebels, which is some rebel group inside of Yemen, they've been actually in the middle of a civil war the last probably 6-7 years. It's been a proxy war between Iran and Saudi Arabia, where Iran is supporting the Houthis and Saudi Arabia is reporting or supporting the other side, and kind of going at a proxy battle with each other through Yemen, essentially, giving money and arms to both sides or whatever. But anyway, the Houthi rebels have been like attacking ships in the Red Sea that are near Yemen, fucking up shipping lanes and things like that. And the rest of the world like took notice, but kind of were just like saying things and not necessarily getting involved. And now we see that this stuff is actually starting to have an actual impact on economies, even in our economy, because now the shipping companies are having to start diverting ships so they don't pass near Yemen to stop these attacks. And by moving the ships into different shipping lanes makes it more expensive because you're taking the longer route, and they've started to pass that stuff on. And this month, when the inflation numbers came out, they actually rose. The first time inflation has risen in I think like 5 months. It's been steadily going down, and then all of a sudden it popped back up again. And I think that got the government's attention, saying, okay, we can't keep letting this shit happen. And so so they're Biden and his folks are saying, we don't want to get into a war with these people, but we're trying to
give them a little pow.
Yeah, like you fucked around, and we did a little bit of finding out, but like let's just stop there. We get the message. You don't like what happened in Israel, but we're not gonna keep letting you fuck with the economy. So watch this space.
Timing, man. There's a election on the horizon.
Yeah, we got the Iowa caucuses will be this week. Trump should win. He's up by like almost 30 points, but some people are wondering, will it be that large of a victory because of this crazy weather that's just happening all in the Midwest and up north and stuff.
Yeah.
And so will people really go out to caucus? I mean, I would say his supporters probably, yeah. The other folks have to worry about their people going out to caucus for them, especially the way caucuses work, given that it's not like a regular election where you just go cast your ballot, leave. You gotta you talk to your neighbors. You're convincing them to, hey, come over to my side or whatever. So the caucuses are different from just a regular primary election. So we'll see what happens there. Governor Chris Christie dropped out of the Republican primary president. I mean, he wasn't going to win, so no surprise there. But essentially, for him, the money dried up, so he was gone. And then this past week, Trump had his appeal for his the January 6th case out of D.C. In the appeals court, his lawyers essentially argued. The judge asked them, "Let me give you a hypothetical. You're saying the president gets immunity unless he is impeached by the House and then convicted by the Senate. If that doesn't happen, he can't be tried criminally by the Justice Department." And the lawyer says, yes, and the judge says, okay, let me give you a hypothetical. If a president orders SEAL Team 6 to kill his political rival, can he be prosecuted for that? And the lawyer did like a bunch of, blah, 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 look over here, look for that, but essentially said, yeah, he can't be, so it's essentially what he's saying is, right, if you take this thing to its logical conclusion, if Joe Biden says, man, Trump's doing kind of good in the polls, let me call up the Navy SEALs, have them handle that. he can't be prosecuted. Yeah, like what the fuck kind of country are we trying to live in? You know what I'm saying? So that happened this week. So we'll see what happens with the court. We're expecting a ruling any day now from the appeals court. And then next week, Trump's defamation trial starts up in New York. The E. Jean Carroll case, the woman who Trump was found to have sexually abused, she's suing him for defamation again. That case will start next week. And then Hunter Biden was in court this week. He pled guilty to tax evasion, he pled not guilty to tax evasion charges. And then also the House of Representatives, the Committee on Oversight, as well as the Judiciary Committee, both voted to hold Hunter Biden in contempt for not complying with subpoenas that they issued. And those two contempt reports will go to the full House. And at some point, the House will vote on whether or not to send a contempt. What do they call it? They'll send it to the Justice Department, essentially saying this person defied Congress, and we want you to charge him with contempt. And the Justice Department will have to decide whether or not they want to move forward and bring contempt charges against him in the courts.
Donald Trump is going to be the Republican candidate,
Nominee.
right?
Yeah,
nominee
for sure.
Yeah.
None of them are going to be him. They like theoretically he can lose, right? Because Trump, in some polls, he's at just over 50%. In other polls, it's just a plurality with like 40-something%, and all the other candidates, as well as undecided, equal more than 50. But you have to imagine that some of those people who are supporting other folks, their number two is still Trump. You know what I mean? So it's not like, oh, I'm supporting DeSantis, but if he don't get it, I'm going to support Chris Christie or Nikki Haley or whatever. You know what I mean? Some of those people have Trump as their number two. So, right. You know, it's not logical to think like, oh, just because, you know, Trump is under 50%, the other, 55, 60% of folks are all anti-Trump or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah, he's going to be the nominee, and it's going to be wrapped up early. Like Nikki Haley thinks she has a shot, and I honestly don't think she does. I think this thing will be wrapped up probably by the time we get to February.
Yeah. We live in a wild ass country. We live in some wild times where we got a guy who's going to run for president with a jacket that looks like that. That shit is crazy to me. Shit is just crazy to me. But
91 criminal counts pending, and people are like, yo, we need this guy in office.
Yeah. He's the savior.
Yeah. And it's why I try to tell people when I talk politics about them, when people do like the both sides thing, I'm like, the Democratic Party has its problems. Don't get me wrong. You know what I mean? But like the two parties aren't the same. You know, when you like one party is saying the president should be able to kill his political rivals and not face criminal prosecution. I mean, and think about this for example. Like if you take that argument to a lot, like forget about Joe Biden having Trump taken care of, right? What they're essentially saying is like they keep saying Joe Biden is corrupt, all this kind of stuff. If the president has to be impeached and then convicted by the Senate in order to face charges, what's to stop Joe Biden from, he loses the election in November, right? The inauguration is January 20th at noon. What's to stop Joe Biden from, at fucking on January 20th at 10:30 a.m. right before he heads to the Capitol for Trump's inauguration, to have the Treasury Department transfer $50 billion into his account. And then when they try to charge him for stealing the government's money, he says, whoa, I wasn't impeached. I didn't get convicted. So, sorry, your loss, bank error and not in my favor. You know what I mean? Like it's monopoly or so. Like this shit is ridiculous, man. These arguments and these things that I know they don't really believe this shit, but like the pretzels that they twist themselves into to support this man.
Yeah. I think it'll be it's gonna be an interesting year, man.
Yeah.
2024 is gonna be an interesting year.
Indeed.
Continue to watch it. I think I'm in a good spot. I don't have anything else on my chest that I need to get off today. Tomorrow is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, so hopefully you're off. Let's see. Question for VP. What's up with the student loans? Should we stop waiting for Joe to come through? I'm sorry if you covered it already.
No, we actually haven't covered it at this point. So they've essentially been let me back up. So Biden, they're working on another program through the first debt forgiveness that they did was through the CARES Act, which the Supreme Court overturned and said they can't do. They're doing another loan forgiveness through a different program, but that one is still going through the when they do things like this, they have to go through a process like where they have to have like a question and answer period and all these kind of things like that before they can actually go out and say this is how it's going to work. And it's still like in that phase of things before they actually like put it out there. In the meantime, what they've continued doing is doing loan forgiveness for like pockets of people where it's been like, oh, if you meet these criterias, and this thing affected 300,000 people, and it was like, $5 billion. And then here's another group of loans they forgave that affected like 600,000 people or whatever. So overall, I think they've forgiven somewhere about 30 or 40 billion dollars in student loans that have impacted a couple million people. But the larger loan forgiveness for the country or student loan borrowers at large hasn't happened yet. They're still working on it so far. But if you ask me, what I think will actually happen, I think they're going to come out with whatever this proposal is like in the summer to try to get the media hit from it to say, hey, we're working on this, keep me in office, and try to use it as a voting thing. But I don't think anything happens until probably later in this summer, and try to use it as an election tactic. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, he's been taking care of some pockets, just not my pockets. Go figure. All right. Well, I hope something happens on that front. But
yeah,
I don't know if that's the thing that's gonna make people be like, oh, let's keep him in office.
Yeah, I think I think the big thing that Biden's going to run on is definitely, no doubt, you're welcome. I think Biden's big thing they're going to try to run on is democracy, and it's basically going to be on fear. And I don't fear is a good motivator, but it's only good in the short term, which is why I think you see people forgetting kind of January 6th happened, and you see people, was it that bad? So I don't know, like I think that's why Obama did so well, is he ran on hope and not fear. I mean, shit was bad. We had the economy tumbling at that point. The Iraq war was going bad. Katrina was only like 2 years removed from Katrina, and all these other things that were going bad in the country. And Obama's whole message was hope, and Biden's message in 2020 was hope. We're going to get past this pandemic, and this guy's a bad president. Put me in there. I know what the hell I'm doing. I know how to operate the wheels of power and that kind of thing like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then January 6th happened, and you're like, oh, this guy is terrible. They took away abortion access, and then 2022 happens or whatever. And I think at some point, people are going to get tired of fear and say, what is it that you've done for me? And while I think that Biden has done a lot, I could name some things, but at the end of the day, like Steve always says, people don't follow politics the way that I do. They come home, they help the kids with homework, they cook some dinner, get the kids ready for bed, they go to sleep, and then reset and do it all over again. And so when they say, man, they started back student loans, what the fuck? I thought they were forgiving that or whatever. Nobody's going to go and look and say, oh, well, actually, these several Republican states sued and Supreme Court overturned it, boom, boom. So now they're not going to be able to use the CARES Act. They're going to use this, that. People not digging into that shit like that. They say, you said student loans, I didn't get student loans, I'm not voting for you. I don't think that's logical, but it's you can't play the game you want to play. You got to play the game you're in, and so I think that they need to do more. I think they need to do more.
It's rubber hits the road, man. At some point, people have to be able to see the results versus hear the results and it be on the backside, right? So when you go to work every day and it comes end of year review time, and you get your raise is only X%, but your health insurance may not have gone up this year, right? Mm-hmm. Your 401k may look better because the stocks are doing better this year because the way your 401k was invested as a corporation, like all of these things that the company does that you just don't see. You don't think about that. You don't think about, oh,
Right.
I got really good health insurance and it didn't go up this year, and my coverage got better, or other things are being covered. Although prescriptions have gone up for others, they stayed the same for me. No. What you're thinking about is people only gave me 3%.
Right.
That
And
3% don't
and
fix my gas issue. That don't help me get to to work even, week over week or day after day. So it's just what you can see. And so that stuff that you talk about that you see, you can see it. You understand it because you watch it. But that I'm telling you, that everyday person, man, they looking for what they can see happening. And what they can
yeah.
see is what the Republicans are throwing at them. Yo, this dude is bombing shit. This dude's bombing shit. He's sending money over here. He's funding, Israel. He's doing this. He's funding Ukraine. He ain't doing shit for America. That's what they're throwing at them, and that's what they can see because it's the headlines and it's the clickbait, right? But you can't
Right.
clickbait the little bullshit stuff. I won't call it bullshit. You can't clickbait the stuff that's not fun. That politicians are doing or that the president is doing that you follow and stuff like that. But you can
Right.
clickbait the stuff that's not fun. And so I think that's where it's going to get challenging.
And the thing I think that makes this point the best is when you look at the stimmies. Trump sent out stimmies, Biden sent out stimmies. It's like people don't even remember that. They only remember Trump did it. And why? Because not only did he go out there and brag about it day after day after day after day, he also, for the people who got checks, he put his name on the checks, put his signature on them. And then for the people who got direct deposits, they sent you a letter saying that you got the direct deposit and then put his signature on that to say, hey, look what I did. You know what I mean? Look what I did. And it's one thing that Biden doesn't do well, like talking about what it is that he's done. I remember when Obama and them passed their stimulus bill after the big recession in 2008, and they started doing these road projects. And you would pass by, and on the sign where they were doing construction, at the bottom, it would say, this construction was paid for by the American Recovery and Rescue Plan of 2009 or American Rescue Act of 2009. Nobody don't know what the fuck that is. You know what I'm saying? So, but if you put on there, like, this bridge was brought to you by Obama, you know what I mean? Like, people get that. You know what I mean? Most citizens don't know what the American Recovery and Rescue Act is. You know what I'm saying?
During the hurricane, when the tolls were free, it said on every billboard that you pass,
yep,
by order of Governor Ron DeSantis, tolls are suspended for your safety for this time. So
exactly.
yeah.
Like, you got to go out and sell your shit and say, I'm doing this or whatever. Here's an example, Steve. Did you know the interchange between I-4 and 408, the new interchange? Remember that whole time, and that shit was like they weren't doing anything on it for like a couple years, and all of a sudden construction picked back up. That shit was paid for by the recovery plan money in the Obama rescue plan. You probably didn't know that. And that's right here in our backyard. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? they $600 million that the Obama administration sent them to finish that shit. So you have not just Floridians, but Orlando folks taking advantage of that money every day. And they probably don't even know that happened. You know what I'm saying? You have to go out and sell what it is that you've done and tell people that you did it, and you can't wait for them to do I think people need to take more responsibility and look into things, but what is happening versus what I think should happen is two different things. You got to play the game you're in, not the game you want to be in.
Right. No doubt. Well, again, 2024 is going to be an interesting year from a political standpoint. Stay tuned. VP will have all the good stuff for you guys. Unfortunately, he's not always in the greatest graces when the Miami Dolphins are playing, but that season is over, so you can try and follow the Heat. However, there's still a long ride ahead for the Dallas Cowboys starting
your
today.
Magic looking good too, man. We haven't talked about that, but your Magic looking good.
Magic do look really good, man, and I'm looking at trying to get some tickets to some games before they go up. But for now, it's football season. Go Cowboys! Let's go. There's a lot to be done, a lot of work ahead. Hopefully, as always, this is our year. But I don't have anything else that we need to cover. If you don't have anything else to cover for today, I'll hand it off to you to get us up out of here.
Hey, everybody, we definitely appreciate you guys for rocking with us on this episode of the Castworthy Podcast. Appreciate the questions in the chat for the folks who listen live. We definitely appreciate you taking that time out of your Sunday morning / afternoon. Tomorrow's Martin Luther King Day, so if you're Black, you're not supposed to go to work. You got to call your company, tell them you're standing on, not just standing on business, you're standing on race. You're not doing it. So I'm joking, obviously. If you got to go to work, go to work. but anyway, man, like we always say, make that phone call, send that text message, reach out to your people, let them know that you're thinking about them. We talked about this being big during the holidays. It's big all the time, but especially around the holidays and post holidays. Check on people, see how they're doing. Let them know that they're cared about, they loved, and that kind of thing like that. You guys can find this podcast on all podcasting platforms by searching Castworthy. You can also follow us on any social media by searching @Castworthy. On Instagram, it's @Castworthy_podcast. While you're there, you can leave a like, subscribe, share, follow, tell a friend, help us grow the audience. We very much appreciate it. And with that being said, again, we definitely appreciate everybody in the chat. And we will see you guys next week for another fresh episode of the Castworthy Podcast. And if your team is still in it, like Steve, good luck to you guys today. And we out. We'll see you next week.